Elena Moretti never imagined her life would end in a school parking lot until the night she witnessed a murder she was never meant to see. Hiding in the shadows, she locked eyes with Adrian Viscari, a mafia boss whose reputation alone could stop hearts. But instead of killing her, he made her an offer that shattered everything: become his wife or die. What started as a death sentence became something far more dangerous: a marriage built on blood, power, and secrets. But when love enters the equation, the real killing begins. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hammered against the classroom windows like bullets, each drop a percussion note in the symphony of the storm. Elena Moretti stood at her desk, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as she sorted through charcoal sketches her students had turned in that afternoon. Outside, Lincoln Heights High School's parking lot stretched empty and dark, the streetlights casting weak halos through the downpour. She should have left an hour ago, but Elena had always been the type to stay late, to give that extra bit of attention to her students' work. At 26, she'd been teaching art for 3 years, and she still felt that electric thrill when a student finally understood perspective, or when a shy kid's drawing revealed depths no one else had noticed. This was her world: small, safe, predictable. The daughter of Italian immigrants who ran a bakery in the Bronx, Elena had grown up with flour on her hands and art in her heart. She'd never wanted anything more than this: a classroom, her students, and the quiet satisfaction of nurturing creativity in young minds. She held up a charcoal portrait of a girl's face, half in shadow. Not bad. Maria Chen, a junior who barely spoke but whose drawings screamed with emotion. Elena made a note to encourage her, to maybe suggest she apply for that summer arts program at... The sound of car doors slamming cut through the rain. Elena's head snapped up. Through the rain-streaked window, she could see headlights cutting through the darkness. 2 cars, both black, both expensive-looking, had pulled into the lot. Strange. The school closed at 6 on Fridays. It was nearly 9 now. Security usually did rounds at 8:30. She watched, curious but not yet alarmed, as men emerged from the vehicles. 4 from the first car, 3 from the second. Even through the rain and distance, she could tell something was wrong. Their movements were too purposeful, too coordinated. They wore dark suits despite the weather, and the way they moved reminded her of predators circling prey. Elena's stomach tightened. She should look away. Whatever this was, it wasn't her business. But she couldn't stop watching. The men from both cars converged in the center of the lot. 2 appeared to be talking, their postures aggressive. Even from the 3rd floor, Elena could see the tension radiating from the scene. Then, as she watched, one of the men pulled something from his jacket. A gun. The muzzle flash came first, a bright burst of light that seemed to freeze time. Then another, and another. The sound followed, muffled by the building and rain, but unmistakable. Crack, crack, crack. Elena's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream. The sketches scattered from her other hand, fluttering to the floor like dying birds. Through the window, she watched a man collapse, then another. The rain washed over them as they fell, their bodies jerking with each impact. She needed to move, call 911, run, something. But her feet felt welded to the floor, her body frozen in horrified fascination. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not at her school, in her safe little world of charcoal and canvas. More gunshots. One of the standing men went down. Then silence, broken only by the relentless drum of rain. The remaining men holstered their weapons with the casual efficiency of people who'd done this before. Many times before. Elena's hands shook as she fumbled for her phone. Her fingers, usually so steady when holding a paintbrush, could barely grip the device. She had to call someone. The police, the principal, anyone. The phone slipped from her trembling hands and clattered to the floor. The sound echoed in the quiet classroom like a gunshot. "No, no, no," she whispered, dropping to her knees to grab it. When she looked up again, one of the men was staring directly at her window. Even through the rain and darkness, even across the distance, Elena felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. He was tall, she could tell that much, with dark hair slicked back from a face she couldn't quite make out. He wore a long black coat that the wind whipped around him, making him look like some kind of avenging angel or demon. He didn't move, didn't gesture to the others, just stared up at her window with an intensity that made her blood run cold. Then he started walking toward the building. Oh, God! Elena scrambled backward, her hip hitting the desk hard enough to bruise. Her mind raced through options. The door. She needed to lock the door. No, she needed to run. The stairs would take her right past the first floor entrance. The elevator was too slow. The fire escape? Could she make it to the roof? Her hands finally found purchase on her phone. She didn't even look at the screen, just hit what she hoped was 911 and pressed it to her ear. Nothing. No dial tone, no ringing, no signal. You have to be kidding me. Her voice came out high and thin, unfamiliar to her own ears. She looked at the screen, one bar flickering in and out. The storm must have knocked out a tower. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Not running, walking. Steady, measured, inevitable. Elena's survival instinct finally kicked in. She killed the classroom lights and dove under her desk, pulling her knees to her chest and trying to make herself as small as possible. Her heart hammered so hard she was sure it could be heard in the hallway. The darkness pressed in on her, broken only by the dim glow of emergency exit signs and the lightning that occasionally lit the windows. The footsteps stopped outside her door. The handle turned slowly. Elena clamped both hands over her mouth to keep from making a sound. She'd forgotten to lock it. Of course she'd forgotten. Who locked doors inside a school? The door swung open with a slow creak that seemed to last forever. More footsteps, these ones entering the room. Elena squeezed her eyes shut like a child, as if not seeing would somehow make her invisible. She heard movement, deliberate and unhurried. He was searching the room, looking for her. "I know you're here." The voice was male, deep, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Not quite Italian, though there were notes of it. Refined, educated. The kind of voice that belonged in boardrooms and opera houses, not school classrooms after murders. "I saw you in the window. Running would have been smarter." Elena bit down on her hand to keep from whimpering. Maybe he was bluffing. Maybe he hadn't actually seen which room. "Third floor, room 312, art classroom. Your nameplate is on the door, Miss Moretti." Papers rustled. "Elena Moretti, 26 years old. You've been teaching here for 3 years. You live in a studio apartment on Fletcher Avenue, you drive a 2015 Honda Civic, and you buy coffee every morning from the shop on the corner. Always the same thing. Medium latte, 1 sugar." The casual recitation of her life made her skin crawl. He knew her. This stranger, this murderer, knew her daily routine better than some of her friends did. "You can come out, Elena. This ends one of 2 ways, and one of them is significantly less unpleasant for you." Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. She needed to think. There had to be a way out. But her mind, usually so creative and nimble, felt frozen with terror. "I don't enjoy killing women." His footsteps moved closer. "It's not a moral stance, merely a preference. But make no mistake, I will, if you force the issue." He was near the desk now. Any second, he would look underneath and find her curled up like a frightened animal. Elena's hand closed around the only potential weapon within reach, a wooden ruler she used for teaching perspective drawing. 12 inches of wood against a man who'd just killed at least 3 people. The odds weren't in her favor. Last chance, Elena. She couldn't just wait to die. Whatever was coming, she would face it. With a speed that surprised even her, Elena rolled out from under the desk on the opposite side and came up running, the ruler gripped in her hand like a knife. She made it 3 steps before an arm caught her around the waist, lifting her clean off her feet. Elena screamed and swung the ruler backward, connecting with something solid. She heard a grunt, and the grip loosened slightly. "Fighter! Interesting." Elena drove her elbow back with all her strength, felt it connect with ribs. Then she was spinning, and suddenly she was facing him, her back pressed against the wall, her wrist caught in an iron grip that made the ruler clatter to the floor. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. He was younger than she'd expected, early 30s, with sharp aristocratic features that belonged on Roman statues, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, a strong jaw, high cheekbones, and a mouth set in a line that suggested he smiled about as often as other people witnessed murders. Rain had dampened his dark hair, making it curl slightly at his collar. A thin cut bled from his temple where she must have hit him with the ruler. He was, objectively speaking, the most handsome man Elena had ever seen. He was also going to kill her. "Done?" he asked, his tone almost conversational. Elena tried to knee him. He shifted his hips, blocking the blow effortlessly, then caught her other wrist. Now both her hands were pinned to the wall above her head, held in place by one of his hands while his body pressed against hers, immobilizing her. I'll take that as a yes. He studied her face with clinical interest, as if she were a painting he was considering purchasing. You have your mother's eyes. She was from Tuscany, wasn't she? The Moretti Bakery on East 187th. Your father is from Naples. You have his stubborn chin. How do you... Elena's voice cracked. She cleared her throat and tried again. How do you know about my parents? I know everything, Elena. It's how I've survived this long. He tilted his head slightly. You're wondering if I'll hurt them. Use them as leverage. She hadn't been wondering that until he said it, but now terror for her parents flooded through her. Please, they don't have anything to do with this. They don't know you saw me kill 3 men tonight. Yes, I'm aware. He released her wrists but didn't step back, effectively caging her against the wall. Hands where I can see them. Elena slowly lowered her hands, holding them palm out at shoulder height. Her mind raced. Keep him talking. That's what they always said in movies, right? Keep the killer talking. Look for an opening. What do you want? She asked. That's a complicated question. He reached into his coat, and Elena flinched, expecting a gun. Instead, he pulled out a pocket square and dabbed at the cut on his temple. You witnessed something you shouldn't have. That creates a problem. I won't tell anyone, I swear. I didn't even see your face, not really, and don't lie. His eyes hardened. You're terrible at it. You saw everything. You're a visual person, an artist. You notice details. Right now you're cataloging every feature of my face, probably thinking about how you'd draw it. He was right, damn him. Even through her terror, part of her brain was noticing the precise angle of his cheekbones, the way shadows pooled beneath his eyes, the slight asymmetry of his nose that suggested it had been broken at least once. Who are you? She whispered. Adrian Viscari. The name hit her like a punch to the gut. Even Elena, who avoided the news and lived in her world of art and students, knew that name. The Viscari family controlled half the organized crime in the city. They were the subject of investigations, rumors, whispered warnings, and Adrian Viscari was the head of it all, the man who'd inherited the empire at 28 and expanded it ruthlessly. You're going to kill me, she said. It wasn't a question. That was my first thought, Adrian admitted. Clean, simple. You disappear, and no one asks too many questions about a young woman who lived alone and had no family in the immediate area. I have parents, friends, students who would notice? Yes. Care? Certainly. Do anything about it. He shook his head. People disappear every day in this city, Elena. The police would investigate. They'd find nothing. Eventually, you'd become a cold case and life would move on. Tears burned in her eyes. She refused to let them fall. Then why are we having this conversation? Because I've decided there's a better option. What could be better than murder for someone like you? A hint of something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Marriage. Elena was sure she'd misheard. The storm, the stress, the terror. They were playing tricks on her mind. What? You're going to marry me, Elena. You're insane. Possibly. Adrian stepped back, finally giving her space to breathe. He moved to her desk, glancing at the student artwork scattered across it. But it solves both our problems. You stay alive. I eliminate a witness without creating a body. Win-win. How is marrying a crime boss winning for me? The alternative is death. I'd think marriage would be preferable, but perhaps your standards are different than mine. Elena's legs felt weak. She wanted to sit down, but that felt like surrendering somehow. This is crazy. You can't just... People don't... In your world, they don't. In mine, they do. Adrian picked up one of Maria Chen's drawings, studying it. Your student has talent. She draws from pain. Abuse at home, I'd guess, probably the father. How do you... Elena stopped. He'd probably had her entire life investigated, including her students. The thought made her sick. Adrian set down the drawing and turned to face her fully. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to disappear. Tonight. You'll leave a note for your parents explaining you've decided to travel, find yourself, whatever people your age do when they have quarter-life crises. You'll resign from your position at the school, effective immediately. I can't just abandon my students in the middle of the semester. You can, and you will. In 3 weeks, we'll be married. A private ceremony. After that, you'll live in my home, under my protection, as my wife. Protection from what? From the consequences of what you saw tonight. Adrian's expression darkened. The men I killed were associates of the Kozlov family. They've been trying to encroach on my territory for months. Tonight's meeting was supposed to be a negotiation. Instead, they tried to kill me. So you killed them first. Self-defense is still legal, even for men like me. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. The moment you witnessed that, you became a liability to multiple parties. The Kozlovs will assume you're my witness, which makes you a target. The police will eventually learn about the shooting, which makes you a valuable asset they'll want to protect and interrogate. And there are others, rivals, opportunists, who would love to use you against me. Then let them. I didn't ask for any of this. No. You asked for nothing except to be left alone to teach art and drink your coffee and live your quiet little life. Adrian's voice softened almost imperceptibly. But that life is over, Elena. The moment you looked out that window, it ended. You can accept that and survive, or you can fight it and die. Choose. Elena's mind spun. This couldn't be real. Any moment, she'd wake up on her couch, having fallen asleep grading papers. This was just a nightmare, born from watching too many crime dramas, and Adrian pulled out a gun. It was real. All of it was horrifyingly, impossibly real. I'm not going to shoot you, he said, reading her expression. This is just to emphasize the seriousness of the situation. You have 30 seconds to decide. That's not enough time to 25 seconds. Marry me and live under my protection, or refuse and die here. Those are your only options. This is kidnapping, coercion, 20 seconds. And yes, it's both those things. Your point? Elena's thoughts raced. Could she run? No, he'd catch her before she reached the door. Fight? She'd already tried that. Scream? Who would hear her? The school was empty, and the storm would drown out any sound. Call for help? Still no signal on her phone. 15 seconds. Think. There had to be a way out. If she agreed now, she'd have time to plan an escape. Go to the police, get into witness protection, something. Agreeing wasn't the end, it was buying time. 10 seconds. Okay. The word burst out of her. Okay, I'll do it. I'll marry you. Adrian lowered the gun. Smart choice. But I have conditions. His eyebrow rose. You're in no position to negotiate. You said marriage solves your problem because it makes me yours, right? Untouchable. Off limits to your enemies because going after me would mean war with you. Essentially. Then it has to be real enough to be believable, which means I need to know you're not going to, she swallowed hard, hurt me, or force me to, you know. Understanding flickered in his dark eyes. You want assurances about your physical safety and bodily autonomy. Yes. Adrian studied her for a long moment. I have no interest in forcing myself on unwilling women, Elena. This is a business arrangement. You'll have your own room, your own space. I won't touch you unless you ask me to. I won't ask. Then I won't touch you. He held out his hand. Do we have an agreement? Elena looked at his outstretched hand. Long fingers, she noticed. No rings except for a silver signet on his right pinky, engraved with what looked like a family crest. She wondered how many people those hands had killed, wondered what she was becoming by shaking one of them. But what choice did she have? She placed her hand in his. His grip was firm but not crushing, his skin surprisingly warm. We have an agreement. Good. Adrian released her hand and gestured toward the door. We leave now. Now? I need to pack. You need to disappear, which means leaving everything behind. Whatever you think you need, I'll provide. He was already moving toward the door, clearly expecting her to follow. Elena's eyes swept her classroom one last time, the student artwork on the walls, the half-finished still life setup in the corner, the coffee mug on her desk with "World's Okayest Teacher" printed on it, a gift from her students last Christmas. This was her life, everything she'd worked for, and she was supposed to just walk away from it. Come on, Elena, we don't have all night. She followed him into the hallway, her feet moving on autopilot. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh relief. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridor, hers hesitant, his confident. What about the bodies? She asked as they descended the stairs. In the parking lot, already being handled, By the time the police arrive, there will be no evidence a crime occurred here. You can do that? Just make 3 bodies disappear? I can do many things, Elena. You'll learn. They reached the first floor. Through the glass doors, Elena could see the parking lot. The rain had intensified, turning the world into a watercolor blur. The bodies were indeed gone, as were all but one of the cars, a sleek black Mercedes that gleamed under the parking lot lights. Adrian held the door open for her. The gentleman criminal. Elena almost laughed at the absurdity. The rain hit her like a slap, instantly soaking through her cardigan. Adrian shrugged out of his coat and draped it over her shoulders. It smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder, a combination that should have repelled her but instead felt oddly comforting in its solidity. He opened the passenger door of the Mercedes. Elena hesitated. "This is your last chance to run," Adrian said quietly. "I'll give you a 10-second head start. You might even make it to the street before I catch you. Of course, you'll be dead within the hour, but at least you'll die free." Elena looked at the open door, then at the rain-soaked street beyond the parking lot. Freedom was right there, just a sprint away. But freedom that ended in death wasn't really freedom at all. She got in the car. Adrian closed the door and walked around to the driver's side. The interior was all leather and dark wood, the kind of luxury Elena had only seen in movies. It even smelled expensive. The engine purred to life with barely a whisper, and then they were moving, leaving the school behind. Elena watched through the rain-streaked window as her old life receded. The building where she'd spent the last 3 years nurturing young artists. The corner where she'd had lunch with other teachers. The parking spot where her old Civic sat, soon to be towed away or taken apart. Or however cars of disappeared people were handled. "You'll need to write that note to your parents tonight," Adrian said, his eyes on the road. "I'll have someone deliver it tomorrow. Make it convincing, apologetic but firm. You're taking time off to travel, to find inspiration for your art. You'll be in touch, but irregularly. They'll worry. Yes, but they'll worry more if you vanish without explanation. This way, they have a story that makes sense." Elena's throat tightened. Her parents. Sweet, hard-working Angelo and Rosa Moretti, who'd emigrated to America 30 years ago with nothing but a bread recipe and determination. Who'd built a successful bakery from scratch. Who'd supported her dream of being an artist even when it meant she'd never help run the family business. Who checked in on her every Sunday without fail. "Can I at least call them before I disappear?" "No, your voice would give you away. The note is safer." They drove in silence for a while, the city sliding past outside. Elena had lived here her whole life, but now it looked alien, threatening. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every stranger could be a killer. Her safe, predictable world had cracked open to reveal monsters underneath. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "My home. You'll stay there until the wedding. In separate rooms." "As agreed." Adrian glanced at her. "You're handling this better than most people would." "Am I?" "Because I feel like I'm about to throw up." "You're not crying or begging or trying to jump out of a moving vehicle. Trust me, that qualifies as handling it well." "The night's not over yet." The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Fair point." They left the city proper, heading into the suburbs where the houses got bigger and the lots more expansive. The rain began to ease, and through the clouds, Elena could see hints of moonlight. Normal people were home now, watching TV, making dinner, living their ordinary lives. Had she been one of them just hours ago? It felt like years. Adrian turned down a tree-lined drive that seemed to go on forever. Finally, lights appeared ahead, a massive estate surrounded by high walls and iron gates. Security cameras tracked their approach. The gates swung open silently. "Welcome home," Adrian said. The house was more like a mansion, all stone and glass and architectural ambition. Lights blazed from the windows, warm and inviting in a way that felt like a lie. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. Adrian parked in a circular drive and came around to open her door. Elena stepped out, Adrian's coat still wrapped around her shoulders. Up close, the house was even more impressive and intimidating. Gargoyles crouched at the corners of the roof. Sculpture dotted the grounds. A fountain burbled somewhere in the darkness. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman stood in the doorway, middle-aged and severe in a black dress that could have been a uniform or just personal style. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her expression suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. "Mrs. Chen, This is Elena Moretti, Adrian said. She'll be staying in the blue guest room. See that she has everything she needs. Of course, Mr. Viscari. Mrs. Chen's eyes swept over Elena with professional assessment. Miss Moretti, if you'll follow me. Actually, Adrian said, Elena needs to write a letter first. Can you set her up in my study? She'll need paper, envelopes, the usual. Mrs. Chen nodded and gestured for Elena to follow her inside. The entrance hall was overwhelming. Marble floors, a chandelier that probably cost more than Elena's yearly salary, a sweeping staircase that belonged in a movie. Original artwork hung on the walls, pieces Elena recognized from her art history classes. Was that a real Monet? This way, miss. Elena followed Mrs. Chen down a hallway lined with more art, more evidence of wealth she couldn't comprehend. The study was smaller than she'd expected, but no less impressive. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, leather furniture that looked butter soft. Mrs. Chen produced stationery from a drawer and set it on the desk along with a fountain pen. Will there be anything else? No, thank you. Mrs. Chen left, closing the door quietly behind her. Elena stood in the middle of the study, suddenly alone for the first time since Adrian had cornered her in her classroom. The adrenaline that had been keeping her upright began to fade, leaving her shaky and exhausted. She sank into the chair at the desk and picked up the pen. Her hand trembled as she touched it to paper. Dear Mom and Dad. The words blurred. Elena blinked hard, forcing back tears. She couldn't cry. Not yet. If she started, she might never stop. I know this will come as a surprise, but I've decided to take some time off to travel. I've been feeling stuck lately, creatively drained, and I think I need to see new places, find new inspiration. I'm not sure exactly where I'll go yet. Maybe Europe, maybe Asia. I want to keep my options open. I know you'll worry, but please don't. I'm fine, more than fine, actually. This is something I need to do for myself. I'll email when I can, though I might not have regular internet access in some places. Don't try to call. I'm turning off my phone for a while to really disconnect. I love you both so much. I'm sorry for the short notice. I'll be back when I've found what I'm looking for. Love, always, Elena. She read it over 3 times, hating every word. It sounded like her, which made it worse somehow. Her parents would believe this. They'd worry, yes, but they'd believe their daughter was off finding herself. Just like she'd always been a bit flighty, a bit impractical, lost in her art. They'd never know the truth. Elena folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and wrote her parents' address on the front in careful script. Her hand had steadied. That felt wrong too, as if she should be shaking, should be falling apart. Maybe she was in shock. A knock at the door. Come in, Elena called. Adrian entered, having changed into dry clothes, dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked more human this way, less like the avenging angel from the parking lot, but his eyes were the same, dark, assessing, missing nothing. Finished? He asked. Elena held up the envelope. Will you really deliver it? Tomorrow morning. One of my people will drop it in your parents' mailbox. No postmark, no way to trace it back to you. And my apartment? Being cleaned out as we speak. Your personal items, photos, journals, anything sentimental will be brought here. The rest will be disposed of or donated. Your car will be sold to a chop shop. Your phone... He held out his hand. I'll need that now. Elena pulled her phone from her pocket, staring at it. Her whole life was on this device. Photos, contacts, messages, apps. With a few taps, she could call for help, alert the police, tell someone where she was. But Adrian would stop her before she got that far, and then the deal would be off. She placed the phone in his hand. Good girl. Adrian slipped it into his pocket. Mrs. Chen will show you to your room. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start planning the wedding. I don't even know anything about you, Elena said. You're a stranger, a murderer, and I'm supposed to marry you. You'll learn everything you need to know in time. As for being a stranger, Adrian moved closer, and Elena fought the urge to back away. We won't be strangers for long, Elena. In 3 weeks, you'll be my wife. You'll wear my ring, take my name, stand beside me at events. You'll be part of my world whether you like it or not. I don't like it. I know, but you'll adapt. People always do. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. The blue guest room has a lock, and you'll have the only key. But don't try to leave the estate. The walls are high, The gates are locked, and my security team has orders to stop anyone from leaving without my permission. They won't hurt you, but they won't let you go either. Understand? I'm a prisoner. You're a guest in protective custody. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Then perhaps you should try standing somewhere else. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Good night, Elena. Try not to hate me too much. It will make the next few weeks easier. He left, the door closing with a soft click. Elena waited 30 seconds, then tried the handle. Unlocked, as he'd implied. She crept into the hallway, empty and quiet. Which way had Mrs. Chen gone? Left, she thought. Elena moved quickly down the hall, her wet shoes squeaking on the marble floor. She passed more rooms, all closed, all silent. Where was everyone? A house this big should have staff, guards, something. Miss Moretti, Elena spun. Mrs. Chen stood behind her, having appeared from nowhere like a ghost. Your room is this way, the woman said, her tone neutral. If you're looking for an exit, you won't find one. Mr. Viscari has made sure of that. I wasn't. Of course you were. It's natural. But you'll only exhaust yourself, and Mr. Viscari prefers his guests well-rested. Mrs. Chen gestured down a different hallway. Please follow me. This time Elena obeyed. What was the point in running when there was nowhere to go? The blue guest room was, indeed, blue. Soft sapphire walls, navy curtains, bedding in varying shades of ocean and sky. It was beautiful in a way that felt designed to soothe, to comfort. A cage could still be lovely. There are clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom, Mrs. Chen said. If you need anything during the night, there's a phone on the nightstand. Dial 0 for the kitchen, 1 for security, 2 for Mr. Vescari's private line. Why would I call him? Mrs. Chen's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You'd be surprised what fears surface at 3 a.m. in a strange place, miss. Pride is worth less than peace of mind. With that cryptic statement, she left. Elena heard the door close, heard footsteps retreat down the hall, then silence. She was alone. Elena walked to the window and pulled back the curtains. The grounds stretched out below, beautifully landscaped even in the darkness. Beyond them, the high walls Adrian had mentioned. And beyond those, freedom. Her old life. Everything she'd lost in the span of a few hours. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass and finally let herself cry. Great gasping sobs that shook her whole body. For her classroom and students. For her parents who would worry and wonder. For her simple, safe life that had been stolen from her by a man with dark eyes and darker purposes. For the person she'd been this morning. Innocent, naive Elena who thought the worst thing that could happen was a bad day at work. That Elena was gone. The woman who would marry Adrian Viscari in 3 weeks, whoever she turned out to be, would have to be someone different. Someone stronger. Someone who could survive in a world of violence and power and terrible choices. Elena cried until she had no tears left, until her eyes burned and her throat ached. Then she pulled off her wet clothes, found a nightgown in the closet. Silk, of course, because even nightgowns in this house were expensive. And crawled into bed. The sheets were soft as clouds, the mattress perfectly firm, everything designed for comfort, for rest. But Elena lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of her prison. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed midnight, then 1, then 2. At some point, exhaustion finally claimed her, dragging her down into uneasy dreams of parking lots and gunshots and dark eyes that saw too much. When she woke, weak sunlight filtered through the curtains. For one blessed moment, Elena forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back, and with it, the reality of her new life. She was going to marry a monster, and there wasn't a damn thing she could do about it. A soft knock woke her. Elena blinked against the morning light, disoriented until the events of last night crashed back with brutal clarity. The murders. Adrian Viscari. The forced engagement that felt more like a death sentence with paperwork. Miss Moretti? Mrs. Chen's voice came through the door. Breakfast is ready. Mr. Viscari is waiting. Elena's stomach twisted. The last thing she wanted was to face him, to sit across a table and pretend this nightmare was normal. But refusing felt dangerous in ways she couldn't articulate. I'll be down in 10 minutes, she called out. The closet held clothes in exactly her size, which should have surprised her, but didn't. Adrian had said he knew everything about her, Apparently that included her measurements. She chose the simplest option, black pants and a cream sweater, and braided her dark hair back from her face. In the bathroom mirror, she looked pale, hollow-eyed, like someone who'd spent the night as a prisoner. Because that's exactly what she was. The house felt different in daylight, less threatening, more opulent. Artwork lined every wall, sculpture occupied every corner. This wasn't just wealth, it was generations of it, the kind of money that came with power and blood. She followed the scent of coffee down the grand staircase, through hallways that seemed designed to intimidate, until she found a breakfast room overlooking manicured gardens. Adrian sat at the head of a long table, reading something on his phone. He dressed in a charcoal suit, his dark hair still damp from a shower. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment those dark eyes assessed her with the same intensity as last night. "You look better," he said. "Sleep well?" "No?" "Honest, I appreciate that." He gestured to the chair at his right. "Sit. Mrs. Chen made enough food to feed an army." The table was indeed laden with options. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, pancakes. Elena's stomach growled despite her anxiety. She hadn't eaten since lunch yesterday, and her body didn't care about the circumstances. She sat, keeping as much distance between them as the chair allowed. Adrian poured her coffee without asking, adding 1 sugar exactly as she took it. The casual knowledge of her preferences unsettled her more than it should have. "How did you sleep?" she asked, then immediately regretted the polite small talk. This wasn't a breakfast date. Like someone who eliminated 3 problems last night. Adrian's tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. "The Kozlovs will retaliate, of course. They always do. But now they're down 3 soldiers and a potential alliance. I'll take that trade." Elena set down her coffee cup carefully. "Do you always talk about murder over breakfast?" "I talk about business over breakfast. Murder is just one aspect of what I do." "And what exactly do you do, besides kill people and kidnap art teachers?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Import-export mostly. Legitimate businesses that occasionally intersect with less legitimate ones. I own restaurants, nightclubs, construction companies. I broker deals between parties who might not otherwise trust each other. I provide services." "You mean you're a criminal?" "I mean I operate in the spaces between legal and illegal where the real power lies." Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Your black and white worldview won't survive long here, Elena. You'll need to learn to see in shades of gray." "I don't want to survive here. I want to go home." "You don't have a home anymore. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." Elena's hands clenched in her lap. "You can't just erase someone's entire life. I already have. Your apartment is empty. Your resignation was submitted to the school this morning. Apparently you've decided to pursue your art full-time and couldn't pass up an opportunity to study in Europe. Your parents received your letter. By now everyone who knew you believes you've chosen to leave. They'll look for me and find nothing." Elena Moretti decided to chase her dreams. It's a lovely story, really. Romantic, even. Adrian picked up his coffee. "You should eat something. We have a busy day ahead." "Doing what?" "Planning a wedding. Meeting with my lawyer to draw up a prenuptial agreement. Getting you fitted for a dress. The usual pre-marriage activities, just with more armed security and less champagne." Elena stared at him. He was serious, actually serious about this insane plan. "You can't be this calm about forcing someone to marry you. Would you prefer I be anxious? Conflicted?" "I've made thousands of difficult decisions, Elena. This barely registers." He paused, something shifting in his expression. "But for what it's worth, I don't enjoy this. You're an innocent caught in circumstances beyond your control. If there were another way to keep you safe and keep my operation secure, I'd take it." "You could let me go." "And watch you die within 48 hours? No, I may be a monster, but I have standards." "Standards." Elena laughed, bitter and sharp. "You killed 3 men last night. 3 men who would have killed me and everyone I care about if I'd given them the chance. 3 men who've done things that would make you vomit if you knew the details." Adrian's voice hardened. "I'm not asking you to like me, Elena. I'm not even asking you to understand me. I'm asking you to survive, and that means accepting the protection I'm offering." "By becoming your wife." "Yes." "For how long?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "What do you mean?" "This arrangement, is it permanent, or do I get parole eventually?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I haven't thought that far ahead. Well, maybe you should, because I'm not spending the rest of my life as your captive wife. Then think of it as temporary. A few years, maybe. Long enough for the danger to pass, for people to forget what you saw. He leaned forward slightly. Long enough for you to become someone else. Someone who can handle what comes after. What comes after? Freedom. A new identity. A new life somewhere far from here. Money enough to start over properly. His eyes held hers. I'm not a complete monster, Elena. When this is done, when you're no longer in danger, I'll let you go. It was the first genuine offer he'd made, and Elena found herself wanting desperately to believe it. A few years of playing the role, and then escape. A new life. It wasn't ideal, but it was something to hold on to. How do I know you'll keep that promise? You don't. But you don't have a choice either way, so you might as well choose to believe me. Adrian stood, straightening his suit jacket. Finish your breakfast. My lawyer arrives at 10, the wedding planner at noon, the dress designer at 2. You'll need your strength. He left before she could respond, his footsteps echoing down the marble hallway. Elena sat alone at the long table, surrounded by more food than she could eat in a week, in a house that felt like a beautiful mausoleum. She forced herself to eat, mechanically putting food in her mouth without tasting it. Survival meant keeping her strength up. Survival meant playing along until she found an opening, a weakness, a way out. If Adrian thought she'd simply accept this fate, he was wrong. Elena Moretti might have been an art teacher, but she was also her father's daughter, stubborn, resourceful, and far more resilient than anyone gave her credit for. She would survive this, and when the time came, she would find her way back to freedom. The lawyer arrived precisely at 10, a severe woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Margaret Reynolds and got straight to business. They met in Adrian's study, the same room where Elena had written the letter to her parents. Now it felt different, more oppressive, as Margaret spread documents across the desk. The prenuptial agreement is straightforward, Margaret said, her tone clinical. Mr. Vescari retains all assets acquired before and during the marriage. In the event of divorce or annulment, you receive a settlement of $2 million and retain any gifts given during the marriage. You waive all claims to his business interests, properties, and other holdings. Elena stared at the papers. $2 million. A generous sum, Margaret confirmed. Most prenups in these circumstances offer far less. These circumstances, Elena repeated. You mean forced marriages to crime bosses? Margaret's expression didn't change. I mean marriages where significant wealth disparity exists between parties. She produced another document. This is a non-disclosure agreement. You will not discuss Mr. Vescari's business, personal life, or any activities you witnessed during the marriage. Violation results in forfeiture of the settlement and potential legal action. Legal action from a crime family, I'm sure that's terrifying. Miss Moretti, I understand this situation is unusual. Unusual, Elena laughed. That's one word for it. Adrian, who'd been silent throughout the proceedings, spoke up. Sign the papers, Elena. They protect us both. They protect you. I get money to keep my mouth shut about the illegal empire I'm being forced to join. You also get financial security for the rest of your life. $2 million is nothing to dismiss. He was right, damn him. $2 million could set her up anywhere in the world, let her start over properly when this nightmare ended. It was blood money, but it was also freedom money. Elena picked up the pen Margaret offered and signed where indicated, her handwriting neat and controlled despite the rage trembling through her. Each signature felt like a piece of her soul being sold, but what choice did she have? Excellent, Margaret said, gathering the papers. The marriage license has already been expedited. The ceremony is scheduled for 3 weeks from today, here at the estate. Small, private, no press. What about witnesses? Elena asked. Don't we need those? Mr. Vescari's associate Vincent will stand as best man, and I've arranged for a neutral party to serve as your witness. Unless you have someone you'd prefer. The casual question hit Elena like a fist. Someone she'd prefer. Her best friend Zoe, who thought Elena was traveling through Europe. Her mother, who'd want to make her wedding dress by hand. Her father, who'd cry walking her down the aisle. All impossible. All lost to her. The neutral party is fine, Elena managed. Margaret left with promises to return with final documents before the wedding. The moment the door closed, Elena rounded on Adrian. $2 million. That's what my life is worth to you? My silence? Your life is worth considerably more than that, Adrian said calmly. The money is for your future. The prenup protects my family's legacy. They're not the same thing. Your family's legacy of crime and violence. My family's legacy of survival. The Vescaris have endured in this country for 5 generations because we understand power, loyalty, and the cost of both. He moved to the window, looking out at the grounds. You think I enjoy this life? The constant threat, the violence, the moral compromises? Do you? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I was 12 when my father explained what our family really did. 15 when I witnessed my first murder. 18 when I committed my own first kill. A rival family's enforcer who'd killed my uncle. He turned to face her. I didn't choose this life, Elena. It chose me. I was born into it, groomed for it, and by the time I understood what it really meant, escape was impossible. You could have walked away and abandoned everyone who depends on me, the legitimate businesses that employ hundreds of people, the protection we provide to communities the police ignore. He shook his head. It's not that simple. It never is, for men like you. No, it's not. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression tightening. The wedding planner is early. Try to be civil. I make no promises. The wedding planner was everything Elena expected. Overly enthusiastic, armed with fabric swatches and flower samples, completely oblivious to the fact that this was a hostage situation rather than a love story. Her name was Diane, and she swept into the room like a fragrant hurricane. Congratulations, she gushed, clasping Elena's hands. Mr. Vescari told me about your whirlwind romance. So exciting. Now I have some absolutely gorgeous ideas for the ceremony. Keep it simple, Adrian interrupted. Small, elegant, no press, no publicity. Diane's smile barely faltered. Of course, of course. Intimate can be just as beautiful. Now, Elena dear, tell me about your vision. What kind of bride do you want to be? A free one, Elena thought. Aloud she said, I don't really have a vision. Oh, don't be modest. Every girl dreams of her wedding day. I'm not most girls. Adrian's hand settled on her shoulder, a gentle pressure that nonetheless felt like a warning. Elena prefers classic styles. Simple, timeless, nothing too trendy. He was right, which annoyed her. Even in this nightmare, he knew her tastes better than she'd articulated them. Diane produced sketches, fabric samples, flower options. Elena nodded along, making choices that felt surreal. White roses, not red. Simple archway, not elaborate gazebo. String quartet, not full orchestra. Each decision felt like stepping further into quicksand. And the dress, Diane exclaimed. I have the perfect designer coming this afternoon. She's done gowns for celebrities, royalty. You'll love her work. I'm sure it's fine. Fine. Oh, honey, this is your wedding day. It should be magical. Elena met Adrian's eyes across the room. There was something there. Not quite sympathy, but acknowledgement. He knew this was torture for her, and he wasn't entirely comfortable with it either. Small comfort, but she'd take what she could get. Diane finally left in a flurry of promises and enthusiasm. Elena slumped in her chair, exhausted from maintaining the facade of happy bride-to-be. You did well, Adrian said quietly. I lied to a nice woman about being excited to marry you. That's not doing well, that's surviving. In my world, they're the same thing. He checked his watch. You have an hour before the dress designer arrives. I'd suggest you rest. I'd suggest you go to hell, but you're probably already there. Adrian's lips quirked. Sharp tongue. I'm starting to think you'll fit into this family better than either of us expected. I'm not fitting anywhere. I'm enduring. Time will tell. Elena retreated to her room, locking the door behind her and collapsing onto the bed. Her mind spun with the morning's events. The prenup, the wedding planning, the casual way everyone pretended this was normal. She felt like she was losing her grip on reality. A knock interrupted her spiral. Miss Moretti, the designer is here. Elena dragged herself up and opened the door to find Mrs. Chen waiting with an expression that might have been sympathy. How do you stand it? Elena asked quietly. Working for him? Knowing what he is? Mrs. Chen's expression didn't change. Mr. Vescari is a complicated man, miss, but he's also fair, loyal to those who serve him well, and protective of what's his. You could do worse. I could also be free. Freedom is relative. I've worked for many wealthy families. Some treated staff like furniture, paid poorly, cared nothing for our welfare. Mr. Vescari pays well, provides excellent benefits, and has never once raised his voice to me. She paused. I'm not saying your situation is fair, it's not. But perhaps you might find that he's not the monster you believe him to be. Before Elena could respond, Mrs. Chen led her to a sitting room where an elegant woman in her 60s waited, surrounded by assistants and garment bags. Ah, the bride. The designer, introduced as Madame Nouvelle, clasped Elena's hands. Such beauty, such poise. We will make you a vision. The next 2 hours were a blur of silk, lace, and measuring tape. Madame Nouvelle draped fabric across Elena's body, murmuring in French to her assistants, creating shapes and silhouettes with practiced efficiency. Despite herself, Elena found the process almost meditative. This at least was about aesthetics, about art, something familiar in a world gone mad. You have an artist's build, Madame Nouvelle observed. Graceful, elegant. We will create something that honors that. Not too much frill, yes? Clean lines, classic beauty. Elena nodded, finding herself actually caring despite everything. If she had to play this role, she might as well look good doing it. Madame Nouvelle sketched rapidly, showing Elena options. They settled on a design that took Elena's breath away despite her resistance. A simple A-line gown in silk charmeuse with a subtle train and delicate lace at the shoulders. Elegant, timeless, exactly what she would have chosen in different circumstances. Perfect, Madame Nouvelle declared. You will be the most beautiful bride. Mr. Vescari is a very lucky man. Elena doubted Adrian saw it that way. This marriage was business for him, strategy wrapped in ceremony. Still, when she caught her reflection in the mirror draped in white silk, she felt something shift inside her. She looked like a bride, like someone's future wife. The realization was terrifying. After Madame Nouvelle left, Elena wandered the estate, needing to move, to think. A security guard followed at a discreet distance, Adrian's orders, no doubt. She explored the gardens, the sculpture collection, the tennis courts she'd never used. Everything was beautiful, expensive, cold. She found Adrian in what appeared to be a home gym, methodically working a heavy bag. He'd stripped to a tank top, and Elena couldn't help noticing the tattoos that covered his arms and shoulders, intricate designs that told stories she couldn't read. Scars, too. Old wounds that spoke of violence survived. He noticed her watching and stopped, breathing hard. Something you need? I was just exploring. Careful. Some parts of the estate are off limits. Why? What are you hiding? Nothing you need to know about. Not yet. He unwrapped his hands, revealing bruised knuckles. How was the dress fitting? Fine. Beautiful, actually, which makes this whole thing worse somehow. Adrian grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from his face. You don't have to hate every aspect of this, Elena. It's okay to appreciate beauty, even in difficult circumstances. Easy for you to say. You're not the one being forced into marriage. No, I'm the one forcing it, which comes with its own complications. He moved closer, and Elena fought the urge to step back. I know you see me as the villain in your story. Maybe I am, but I'm also the only thing standing between you and a very ugly death. So I should be grateful. I don't expect gratitude, but perhaps you could extend a small amount of trust. I've kept my word so far, haven't I? Your own room, your own space, no unwanted advances. He was right, which Elena hated. Since last night, Adrian had been nothing but professional, if you could call kidnapping professional. He hadn't touched her except that one moment in the classroom, hadn't made any threatening moves. What happens after the wedding? She asked. What does this marriage actually look like day to day? Adrian considered the question. You'll attend certain events with me. Dinners, meetings where having a wife provides useful optics. You'll be seen, but not necessarily involved in business discussions. The rest of your time is yours, within the estate, of course. I'm still a prisoner. You're still protected. There's a difference. Not to me. Then perhaps your perspective needs adjusting. Adrian's tone hardened slightly. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking you somewhere. You'll see what happens to people who aren't protected in this world. Maybe then you'll understand why I'm insisting on this arrangement. What kind of place? The kind that will make you appreciate these walls, however confining they feel. That night, Elena lay awake again, her mind churning with questions. What did Adrian plan to show her tomorrow? What horrors awaited in his world that would make captivity seem preferable? And why did part of her actually want to understand him? To see past the cold exterior to whatever drove a man to build walls this high, to live a life this dangerous. She told herself it was survival instinct. Understanding your captor increased your chances of escape. But deep down, Elena suspected it was something more complicated, something dangerous. Morning came too quickly. Elena woke to Mrs. Chen knocking softly, informing her that Mr. Vescari expected her downstairs in 30 minutes. She dressed in jeans and a sweater, uncertain what Adrian's mysterious outing required, but wanting to feel like herself rather than the polished prisoner she'd been playing. He was waiting by the Mercedes, dressed casually in dark jeans and a leather jacket. 2 SUVs idled nearby, filled with security personnel. Whatever they were doing today, Adrian was taking it seriously. "Where are we going?" Elena asked as he opened her door. "You'll see." They drove in silence through the early morning streets, leaving the wealthy suburbs behind. The city changed as they traveled, growing grittier, more desperate. Abandoned buildings gave way to struggling neighborhoods where people moved with hunched shoulders and wary eyes. Elena recognized this part of the city from news reports. High crime, high poverty, the kind of place politicians promised to fix and never did. Adrian pulled up in front of a battered community center, its brick facade tagged with graffiti. The security detail parked behind them, and 2 men emerged, flanking Adrian as he led Elena inside. The interior was better than the exterior suggested. Clean, if worn. A handful of people worked at desks or moved through hallways. They nodded respectfully to Adrian, some even smiling, not the reaction Elena expected criminals to receive. "Mr. Viscari," a woman called out, hurrying over. She was middle-aged, her face lined with exhaustion, but her eyes bright. "We weren't expecting you today?" "I wanted to show someone what we do here, Maria." Adrian gestured to Elena. "This is Elena. She'll be my wife soon." Maria's eyes widened, then softened. "Congratulations. He's a good man, this one. Saved my daughter's life." Elena blinked. "How?" "Come, I'll show you." Maria led them through the center, explaining as they walked. The place provided resources for people escaping domestic violence, addiction, gang life, legal aid, job training, counseling, all funded anonymously by what Maria called private donors, but what Elena suspected was Adrian's money. "We had nothing before Mr. Vescari found us," Maria said. "My daughter Rosa was in an abusive relationship. Her boyfriend was connected, made it impossible for her to get help through normal channels. She came to me bleeding, terrified, nowhere to turn." Maria's voice cracked. "Mr. Vescari made it stop, made him disappear. Then he gave us this place so we could help others." Elena looked at Adrian, who stood quietly, his expression unreadable. "Made him disappear?" "Sometimes the law isn't enough," Maria said simply. "Sometimes you need someone willing to step outside it to protect the innocent." They moved through the center, and everywhere Elena saw evidence of Adrian's influence. A legal clinic helping people fight wrongful evictions. A job training program placing reformed gang members in legitimate work. A medical office providing free care to uninsured families. None of it advertised, none of it seeking recognition. In a sunny room at the back, children worked on art projects. Elena's heart clenched. This should have been foreign territory for a crime boss, but Adrian moved through it naturally, greeting kids by name, asking about their drawings. A little girl ran up to him holding a crayon drawing. "Mr. Adrian, look what I made." He crouched to her level, studying the picture seriously. "That's excellent work, Lily. Is that your family?" "Uh-huh. That's me and Mama and my new baby brother. We got our own apartment now, 'cause of you." "Because of your mother's hard work," Adrian corrected gently. "I just helped open the door. She walked through it." The girl beamed and ran back to her art. Adrian stood, catching Elena's expression. "What?" he asked. "You're good with them, the kids." "Children are innocent. They deserve protection, opportunity. It's not complicated." But it was complicated, Elena thought. Everything about Adrian Vescari was complicated. He killed without hesitation but funded community centers. He trafficked in violence but genuinely cared about children's crayon drawings. He'd kidnapped her, but was showing her this place, this evidence that he was more than just a monster. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked. "Because you need to understand that the world isn't black and white. The police don't come to neighborhoods like this, Elena. The law doesn't protect these people. So someone else has to. He gestured around the center. This is what I do with the money I make. Does it erase the violence? No. Does it matter anyway? I think it does. Maria rejoined them, carrying a folder. These are the numbers from last quarter. We've placed 43 people in permanent housing, 67 in stable employment. The domestic violence cases... She paused, glancing at Elena. Well, let's just say intervention has been effective. Good. Adrian took the folder. Let me know if you need anything. We're expanding operations, which means more funding available. You're a blessing, Mr. Viscari. He looked uncomfortable with the praise. I'm just a man with resources putting them to use. Elena, we should go. Back in the car, Elena sat in silence, processing what she'd seen. Adrian drove without speaking, letting her think. Finally, she said, That doesn't make what you did to me okay. I know. You can't kidnap someone and then show them your charity work and expect forgiveness. I'm not expecting forgiveness, I'm providing context. Adrian's hands tightened on the wheel. You've been living in a bubble, Elena. A safe, comfortable world where violence is something that happens to other people. Where justice comes from courts and laws. That's not reality for everyone. So you appoint yourself judge and executioner? When necessary, yes. That's terrifying. It should be. Power without fear is useless. He glanced at her. But power with purpose, power that protects people who can't protect themselves, that's worth the cost. Even if the cost is becoming a monster? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I became a monster a long time ago, Elena. The question isn't whether I am one. It's whether I'm a monster with a conscience or without one. They drove to another location, this one a restaurant in a better neighborhood. Adrian was clearly known here too, the staff greeting him warmly. He led Elena to a private dining room where a man waited, older, gray-haired, with kind eyes and an expensive suit. Vincent, Adrian said, embracing him. Elena, this is Vincent Caruso, my father's oldest friend and the closest thing I have to family. Vincent's smile was genuine as he took Elena's hand. The famous Elena. Adrian has told me about you. Has he mentioned the kidnapping part? Elena asked sweetly. Vincent laughed, a deep, warm sound. I like her already. She's got spine. He gestured for them to sit. Adrian, leave us. I want to speak with your bride alone. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but Vincent's expression brooked no disagreement. With visible reluctance, Adrian left the room, closing the door behind him. Vincent poured wine, studying Elena with shrewd eyes. You're angry, frightened, confused. All reasonable reactions. Did you know what he was planning? I advised against it, for what it's worth. Told him there were other ways to handle the situation. Vincent sipped his wine. But Adrian doesn't always listen to advice, even mine. He's stubborn, like his father. You're his godfather? In every sense that matters. I held him when he was hours old. I taught him to shoot, to fight, to think strategically. I also tried to teach him mercy, though that lesson didn't always take. Vincent's expression grew sad. His father died when Adrian was 25, murdered by rivals who thought the son would be weaker than the father. They were wrong. He killed them. He destroyed them. Their entire organization, their family's power base, everything they'd built. It took 3 years, but Adrian dismantled them piece by piece. Vincent refilled his glass. That's when I understood what he'd become. Not just a leader, but a force of nature. Unstoppable when he sets his mind to something. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand what you're dealing with. Adrian has decided you're his responsibility now. That means he'll protect you with everything he has, but it also means he won't let you go until he's certain you're safe. I could be safe somewhere far from here. Could you? Vincent leaned forward. The Kozlov family knows you saw their men killed. Right now, you're protected by Adrian's reputation. Hurting you means war with him. But if you leave, if you're no longer under his protection, you become an easy target, a loose end to tie up. Elena's stomach dropped. So I'm trapped either way. You're alive either way. That's not nothing. Vincent's expression softened. I know this isn't the life you chose, but Adrian isn't the villain you think he is. Give him a chance. You might be surprised. Everyone keeps telling me that he's complicated, that he's not a monster, that I should trust him, but he still took everything from me. He took your old life. Maybe he'll give you a new one worth living. Vincent stood. Come, let's eat. Adrian gets anxious when I monopolize his time with beautiful women. Lunch was surprisingly pleasant. Vincent told stories about Adrian's childhood, painting a picture of a boy forced to grow up too fast, who'd seen too much violence too young but somehow retained a core of decency. Elena found herself laughing despite everything, drawn in by Vincent's warmth and humor. Adrian rejoined them for dessert, his eyes moving between Elena and Vincent with something like suspicion. "What have you been telling her?" "The truth," Vincent said innocently, "that you were an ugly child but improved with age." "I was a beautiful child, and you know it. Keep telling yourself that." The easy banter between them revealed a different side of Adrian. With Vincent, his guard dropped. He smiled more, laughed even. For a moment, Elena could almost forget he was a dangerous criminal and see him as just a man with someone he cared about. Almost. The wedding preparations consumed the next 2 weeks. Elena was measured and fitted, consulted on flowers and music, asked to approve menus she didn't care about. Through it all, Adrian maintained professional distance. They had meals together, spoke about logistics, but he never pushed for more. Never tried to manufacture intimacy that didn't exist. The night before the wedding, Elena stood in her room looking at the dress hanging on her closet door. Tomorrow she would wear it, say vows she didn't mean, become Elena Viscari. The thought made her ill. A knock interrupted her spiral. Adrian stood in the hallway, holding 2 glasses of wine. "I thought you might need this," he said. Elena took a glass and stepped back, letting him enter. He moved to the window, looking out at the darkened grounds. "Having second thoughts?" she asked. "About what?" "This whole arrangement, marrying someone who hates you." Adrian turned to face her. "Do you hate me, Elena?" The question caught her off guard. Did she? She wanted to. She should. But after 2 weeks of living in his house, seeing the community center, meeting Vincent, watching Adrian interact with his world, hate felt too simple. "I don't know what I feel about you," she admitted. "You're a criminal, a killer. You've destroyed my life, but you're also more complicated than I expected." "That's the most honest thing you've said to me since this started." "Don't get used to it." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I wouldn't dare." He drank his wine, then said quietly, "I know this isn't fair to you. I know you didn't choose this. But for what it's worth, I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe." "That's not nothing." "It's not enough either." "No, but it's what I have to offer." They stood in silence, drinking wine, 2 people on the edge of a binding neither wanted, but both were committed to. Finally, Adrian set down his glass. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day." He left, and Elena was alone again with her thoughts and fears and the white dress that hung like a ghost in her closet. The wedding day dawned clear and bright, mocking Elena's dark mood. Mrs. Chen helped her dress, her practiced hands gentle as she fastened buttons and arranged the train. The dress fit perfectly, transforming Elena into someone she barely recognized. A bride. Adrian Viscari's bride. The ceremony was held in the estate's gardens, beneath an archway of white roses. A handful of people attended. Vincent, some of Adrian's associates, the neutral witness Margaret had arranged. Elena's side was empty, a painful reminder of everything she'd lost. Adrian waited at the altar in a tailored black suit, looking every inch the powerful man he was. When Elena walked down the aisle alone, his expression shifted into something she couldn't read. Not quite admiration, not quite possession. Something in between. The officiant spoke words Elena barely heard. She made responses on autopilot, her voice steady despite the screaming in her head. This was wrong. This was insane. This was... "I do," Adrian said, his voice clear and certain. "I do," Elena echoed, the lie tasting like ash. Adrian slipped a ring onto her finger, a stunning diamond that probably cost more than her parents' bakery. She did the same for him, a simple platinum band that felt heavy with implications. "You may kiss the bride." Adrian's hand cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She couldn't. When his lips touched hers, the kiss was soft, brief, nothing like she'd expected from a man capable of such violence. When he pulled back, his dark eyes held hers. "Hello, Mrs. Viscari," he said quietly. The name sent a shiver through her. She was married. Actually, legally married to Adrian Viscari. The reality of it crashed over her like a wave. The reception was small, elegant, Precisely the kind of intimate gathering Diane had planned. Elena moved through it in a daze, accepting congratulations from people she didn't know, playing the happy bride for an audience that probably saw right through her. Vincent pulled her aside during dinner. "You survived the ceremony. That's the hardest part." "Is it? Because I feel like the hard part is the rest of my life." "Give it time, Elena. You might surprise yourself." That night, true to his word, Adrian showed her to her room, still the blue guest room, still her private space. He paused at the door, his new wedding ring catching the light. "We leave for the honeymoon tomorrow," he said. 2 weeks in Italy. I thought you might appreciate seeing where your family is from." "A honeymoon? How romantic." "It's for appearances, but also—" He hesitated. "I thought you might enjoy some beauty after all this ugliness." Before Elena could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. "I need to take this. Get some rest." He was gone before she could ask what was wrong, leaving her alone in her wedding dress, a married woman who'd never felt more isolated. Italy should have been beautiful, and it was. Adrian had rented a villa in Tuscany, all honey-colored stone and rolling vineyards. For the first few days, they played at being a normal couple. He showed her medieval towns and Renaissance art. They ate incredible food and drank better wine. It was almost easy to forget this was all a lie. Almost. On their 5th night, Elena woke to shouting. She grabbed a robe and followed the noise to Adrian's study, where he stood behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear, his expression thunderous. "I don't care what it costs. Find them before they find us." He slammed the phone down, then noticed Elena. "What are you doing awake?" "What's going on?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Adrian?" "Go back to bed, Elena." But she'd heard the edge in his voice, seen the tension in his shoulders. Something was very wrong. The next morning, security had doubled. Men in dark suits patrolled the villa's perimeter. Adrian was on the phone constantly, speaking in rapid Italian she could only partially follow. When she tried to ask questions, he shut her down. "It's being handled," was all he'd say. It was being handled until the 3rd night, when everything went to hell. Elena was reading in bed when the first gunshot echoed through the villa. She froze, the book tumbling from her hands. More shots followed, rapid and close. Shouting, breaking glass. Adrian burst into her room, gun in hand. "Get up! Now!" "What's happening?" "The Kozlovs found us. We need to move." He pulled her out of bed. Not gentle, but not rough either. "Stay behind me and do exactly what I say." They ran through the villa, Adrian's security team engaging with attackers Elena couldn't see. Bullets shattered windows, embedding in walls. Adrian shielded her with his body, returning fire with deadly precision. 3 men went down before they reached the garage. "Get in the car," Adrian ordered, shoving her toward an SUV. Elena's hands shook too badly to open the door. Adrian did it for her, practically throwing her inside before climbing into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life as bullets pinged off the armored exterior. They crashed through the garage door into chaos. Men with guns surrounded the villa, firing at anything that moved. Adrian drove like a madman, weaving between obstacles, using the SUV as a weapon. Bodies flew as he crashed through their lines, speeding toward the gate. An explosion rocked the vehicle. Adrian swore, fighting for control as they fishtailed. "Hold on!" Another explosion, closer this time. The SUV's back window shattered, glass raining down. Elena screamed, covering her head. Adrian kept driving, one hand on the wheel, the other firing out his window. They broke through the gate and onto the road, but the attack wasn't over. 2 vehicles pursued them, men leaning out windows to shoot. Adrian's phone buzzed. He answered on speaker. "Vincent, we're compromised. Need extraction at the secondary location." "On it, 20 minutes." "We might not have 20 minutes." Adrian threw the phone aside, his full focus on driving and defending. Elena looked back at their pursuers, close and gaining. Terror crystallized into something sharper, something decisive. "There's a gun in the glove box," Adrian said through gritted teeth. "Can you shoot?" "I've never. It's point and squeeze. That's all you need to know." Elena fumbled the glove box open. The gun inside was smaller than Adrian's, but still terrifyingly real. Her hands shook as she picked it up. "Safety's off," Adrian said. "Lean out your window and aim for the driver. Don't think, just shoot." Elena looked at him, saw the blood on his arm from a wound she hadn't noticed, saw the determination in his eyes, the absolute focus. He was fighting for both their lives. She could help or she could hide. Elena rolled down her window, the wind whipping her hair. She leaned out, raised the gun with both hands, aimed at the nearest vehicle's windshield. The driver was visible, young, focused, trying to kill her husband. Her husband. The thought steadied her. Elena squeezed the trigger. The recoil shocked her, but she held on. The windshield of the pursuing vehicle spiderwebbed. She fired again until the gun clicked empty. The vehicle swerved violently, crashing into a ditch. "Good girl," Adrian said fiercely. "One more. Can you reload?" "I don't know how." "Figure it out. Magazine release is on the grip." Elena's hand shook as she fumbled with the gun, managed to eject the empty magazine. Adrian passed her a full one without taking his eyes off the road. She slammed it home like she'd seen in movies and leaned out again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She aimed, fired, emptied the magazine into the second vehicle. Bullets sparked off metal, shattered more glass. The driver slumped, and the vehicle careened off the road. Elena collapsed back into her seat, the gun falling from her nerveless fingers. She'd just shot at people, maybe killed them. Her whole body shook with adrenaline and horror, and something else she couldn't name. Adrian's hand found hers, squeezing hard. "You saved our lives. You understand that?" "I don't understand anything." "You will." They drove in silence, putting distance between them and the attack. Eventually, Adrian pulled into a remote farmhouse where Vincent and more security waited. The older man pulled Elena from the car, checking her for injuries. "I'm okay," she managed. Adrian's hit. His arm, flesh wound, Adrian dismissed, but Vincent was already dragging him inside. The farmhouse was safe, secure, somewhere to regroup while Adrian's people cleaned up the mess and hunted the remaining Kozlovs. A doctor arrived to stitch Adrian's arm. Elena sat nearby, still shaking, watching as he endured the procedure without anesthetic, his jaw tight but his eyes never leaving hers. When the doctor finished and left them alone, Adrian crossed to where Elena sat on a worn couch. He knelt in front of her, taking her cold hands in his. "Look at me," he said softly. She did. His dark eyes were intense, searching. "What you did tonight, stepping into danger, fighting instead of hiding, that took courage most people don't have. I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." His thumbs rubbed circles on her hands. "You could have frozen, could have let them kill us. Instead you fought, for me, for us." "Don't read too much into it. Survival instinct, that's all." "Is it?" Adrian's gaze intensified. "Because here's what I've realized, Elena. This stopped being business the moment I walked into your classroom. I told myself it was strategy, protection, necessity. But watching you tonight, seeing you refuse to be a victim, understanding that I could have lost you." His voice roughened. "I can't lose you. I won't." Elena stared at him, her heart pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this marriage might have started as a lie, but it doesn't have to stay one." He raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "I'm saying I've spent 2 weeks watching you adapt to impossible circumstances with grace and strength. I'm saying that somewhere between the wedding and tonight, I stopped seeing you as an obligation and started seeing you as someone I want beside me. Not because I have to protect you, but because I want you there." "Adrian, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to feel the same, but I needed you to know." He stood, pulling her up with him. "We'll stay here tonight, fly home tomorrow. And when we get back, things will be different. The Kozlovs are finished. After tonight, they won't dare come near us again. You'll be safe, truly safe." "And then what?" "Then we see what this marriage could actually be, if we both choose it." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "I'm not good at this, Elena. I don't know how to be a real husband, how to offer you anything except my protection and my fortune. But I'm willing to learn if you're willing to teach me." Elena's mind spun. This was insane. All of it. But as she stood there, Adrian's hand warm against her face, her body still thrumming with adrenaline from the fight, she felt something shift inside her. Fear, yes. Confusion, absolutely. But also something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. "I'm not promising anything," she said. "I'm not asking for promises. Just a chance. One chance, that's all." Adrian's smile transformed his face, making him look younger, less hardened. "One chance is more than I expected." He pulled her close, and this time when he kissed her, It was different from the chaste kiss at their wedding. This was heat and hunger and relief that they'd both survived. Elena melted into it, her hands fisting in his shirt, her body pressed against his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "I know you didn't choose this," he whispered, "but I'm going to spend every day making sure you don't regret staying." Elena didn't answer. She just held on to him, this complicated, dangerous man who'd stolen her life and was now offering her a different one. Tomorrow, they'd fly home. Tomorrow, they'd face whatever came next. But tonight, in this farmhouse in the Italian countryside, with the taste of gunpowder and wine still on their lips, Elena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be something more than a prison sentence. It could be a future worth fighting for. The flight home felt different. Elena sat beside Adrian in the private jet, acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched, his shoulder against hers, their hands occasionally brushing on the armrest. The tension between them had shifted from adversarial to something electric, dangerous in a completely new way. Adrian worked on his laptop, making calls in Italian and English, orchestrating the cleanup from the attack. Elena watched him, noticing details she'd forced herself to ignore before, the way his brow furrowed when concentrating. The decisive movements of his hands, the quiet authority in his voice that made people obey without question. "Stop staring," he said without looking up, the corner of his mouth lifting. "I'm not staring. I'm observing." That's a distinction without a difference. He closed the laptop and turned to face her fully. "What are you observing?" "That you're more comfortable giving orders than anything else. That you've probably never had to ask for what you want because people just give it to you out of fear." "Astute." Adrian's expression turned serious. "Does that bother you?" "It should, but I'm realizing that fear and respect aren't always separate things in your world." "Our world now," he corrected quietly. "You're part of this whether you wanted to be or not. Last night proved that." Elena's hands clenched at the memory of holding the gun, pulling the trigger, watching vehicles crash. "I killed people. You defended yourself, defended us. There's a difference." "Is there? Because I can still feel the recoil, still see—" Her voice cracked. Adrian took her hand, his grip firm and grounding. "The first time is always the hardest. The images will fade, but the knowledge that you're capable of violence when necessary, that stays with you, changes you." "I don't want to be changed." "Too late for that. You changed the moment you looked out that classroom window." His thumb traced patterns on her palm. "But you get to choose what kind of person you become with that knowledge. Someone who uses violence as a first resort, or someone who uses it only when there's no other choice." "Which one are you?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "I'd like to think the latter. But I've made so many choices, crossed so many lines, that I'm not sure I can claim moral high ground anymore. I do what's necessary to protect what's mine. Sometimes that's writing checks to community centers. Sometimes it's putting bullets in people who threaten my family. And I'm family now. You're more than family, Elena. You're my wife." He raised her hand to his lips, his eyes never leaving hers. "That means something to me, even if it started as a strategic move. What happened last night, what I said, I meant it. This doesn't have to be a prison sentence for either of us." Elena wanted to pull her hand away, to maintain the distance that had kept her safe, but safety felt less important than connection, than the warmth of his touch and the intensity in his eyes that suggested he saw her as more than a problem to solve. "I need time," she said, "to understand what this is, what we could be." "You have it. All the time you need." They landed at a private airfield where more security waited. The drive back to the estate was tense, everyone on high alert despite Adrian's assurance that the threat had been neutralized. Elena noticed the extra guards, the heightened security measures, the way Adrian's people moved with military precision. Mrs. Chen greeted them at the door, her usual composure slipping when she saw the bandage on Adrian's arm. "You're hurt." "It's nothing. Is Vincent here?" "In your office, waiting." Adrian turned to Elena. "I need to handle some business. Rest, eat, whatever you need. We'll talk later." But Elena followed him to the office, ignoring his look of surprise. Vincent stood as they entered, his expression grim. "The Kozlov family is in chaos," Vincent reported. 4 dead from the Italy attack, 3 more from our counterstrikes. Their leadership is fractured, fighting among themselves about whether to escalate or sue for peace. We don't give them the choice, Adrian said coldly. I want them finished. Every operation they run, every revenue stream, every connection they have, I want it dismantled. That's war, Adrian, total war. They came after my wife. They lose everything. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver through Elena. Vincent noticed her presence and raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Viscari, perhaps you'd prefer to wait elsewhere while we discuss business? No, Elena said firmly. If this concerns me, I should hear it. Adrian studied her, then nodded. She stays. Continue, Vincent. For the next hour, Elena listened as they planned the systematic destruction of the Kozlov organization. It should have horrified her, these men discussing violence and ruin with the casualness of businessmen planning a merger. But instead, she found herself understanding the logic, the necessity of making an example so brutal that no one would dare threaten them again. There's another issue, Vincent said carefully. Marcus. Adrian's expression darkened. What about him? He's been asking questions about the wedding, about Elena, about why you've restructured security protocols. Some of the men think he's positioning himself for something. Marcus has been with us for 15 years. Exactly. Which means he knows enough to be dangerous if his loyalty wavers. Elena spoke up. Who's Marcus? My second in command, Adrian said. Or he was. I've been giving him less responsibility since... He stopped, glancing at Elena. Since you decided to marry me, she finished. You don't trust him around me. I don't trust anyone around you except Vincent and myself. That's going to make running your organization difficult. Then I'll make it work differently. Adrian's jaw tightened. Vincent, set up a meeting with Marcus. Tomorrow, I'll handle it directly. After Vincent left, Elena poured herself a drink from the bar cart in Adrian's office, her hands surprisingly steady. You think he'll betray you? I think power makes people do unpredictable things. Marcus has always been ambitious. Marrying you, changing my priorities, it might make him see an opportunity. To do what? Take over? Or sell me out to rivals, or use you as leverage? Adrian moved closer, his intensity focused entirely on her. That's why I need you to understand something, Elena. In this world, showing weakness gets you killed. Having something you care about more than power, that's the ultimate weakness. And you care about me. More than I should, more than is safe. He touched her face, his hand gentle despite the violence he was capable of. Which means I have to be twice as ruthless with everyone else to compensate. Elena leaned into his touch, a choice she was still processing. I don't know how to be what you need me to be. This world, these people. I'm an art teacher, Adrian. I don't belong here. You belonged the moment you pulled that trigger in Italy, the moment you chose to fight instead of hide. His forehead rested against hers. You're stronger than you think, Elena Viscari. You just haven't realized it yet. The next morning, Elena woke in her own bed but found herself wishing she'd accepted Adrian's unspoken invitation to share his. The thought startled her. When had she started wanting his proximity? When had her captor become someone she sought comfort from? She dressed carefully, choosing a black dress that felt appropriate for whatever was coming. Downstairs, she found Adrian in the breakfast room, but the warmth from yesterday was replaced by cold focus. He was preparing for war. Marcus will be here in an hour, he said without preamble. I want you present for the meeting. Why? Because he needs to see that you're not a weakness, that you're part of this, part of my power structure. Adrian's eyes were hard, and because if he's planning something, having you there might make him show his hand. You're using me as bait. I'm using you as a statement. There's a difference. Elena sat across from him, understanding settling into her bones. What do you need me to do? Be yourself. But the version of yourself that survived Italy. The woman who shot at our attackers without hesitation. That woman belongs here. That woman terrifies me. Good, she should, but she's also the one who'll survive what's coming. Marcus arrived exactly on time, a man in his 40s with cold eyes and a practiced smile. Elena watched as he greeted Adrian with apparent warmth, but underneath she sensed calculation. He was measuring, assessing, looking for angles. Mrs. Viscari, Marcus said smoothly, taking her hand. I apologize for not attending the wedding. Business kept me away. Of course, Elena replied, her voice steady. Adrian mentioned you've been very busy. They sat in Adrian's office, the power dynamics immediately clear. Adrian behind his desk, Marcus in the chair opposite, Elena on the sofa to the side, present but not participating. Yet. I heard about Italy, Marcus said. Unfortunate that the Kozlovs found you. Unfortunate for them, Adrian replied coldly. 4 of theirs dead, their leadership in chaos. I'd call that a successful outcome. Still, it raises questions about our security protocols, how they found you in the first place. Questions I'm already answering. Someone leaked our location. Someone with access to our travel arrangements. Marcus's expression didn't change, but Elena saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear? Guilt? You think it was internal? I know it was. The question is who? Adrian leaned back in his chair, deceptively relaxed. You've been asking questions about my wife, Marcus. About why I married her. Why I changed security procedures. Why is that? Natural curiosity. You've never brought a woman into the organization before. She's not in the organization. She's my wife, my family. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I sit, it looks like you've let sentiment compromise your judgment. You're distracted making emotional decisions instead of strategic ones. The temperature in the room dropped. Elena felt it, saw Adrian's expression shift into something dangerous. But before he could respond, she spoke. You think I'm a distraction? She asked Marcus directly. He turned to her, surprise flickering across his face. With respect, Mrs. Viscari, you're not equipped for this life. You're a civilian, suddenly thrust into a world you don't understand. That makes you a liability. I put 3 bullets in the driver of a car chasing us through Italy, Elena said calmly. I reloaded under fire and took out a second vehicle. Does that sound like a liability to you? Marcus reassessed her, his eyes narrowing. Anyone can pull a trigger when their life is threatened. You're right, but not everyone chooses to fight instead of hide. Not everyone steps into danger to protect someone they barely know. Elena stood, moving closer to Adrian's desk. You think he's weak because he married me. You think sentiment is vulnerability, but you're wrong. Am I? Adrian is more dangerous now than he was before, because now he has something to protect, something worth burning the world down for. She met Marcus's gaze steadily. And I'm more dangerous than you think, because I have nothing left to lose except him. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus stared at her, clearly recalculating. Adrian remained still, but Elena felt his approval like a physical thing. The leak came from your operation, didn't it? Adrian said quietly. Not you directly. You're too smart for that. But someone in your crew, someone you vouched for, sold our location to the Kozlovs. Marcus's jaw tightened. If that's true, I'll find them. Too late. I already have. Adrian slid a folder across the desk. Tommy Rizzo, your cousin. He's been feeding information to Kozlov contacts for 3 months. The Italy trip was just the latest. Marcus opened the folder, his face paling as he read. Tommy wouldn't... Tommy did. And because he was under your supervision, that makes you responsible. Adrian, I swear I didn't know. I believe you. If I thought you were complicit, you'd already be dead. Adrian's voice was ice. But your oversight nearly cost me my wife. That debt needs to be paid. Elena watched Marcus struggle with the implications. She should have felt sympathy for him, caught in circumstances beyond his control. But all she felt was cold satisfaction that Adrian was handling this decisively. What do you want from me? Marcus asked finally. Your cousin is already handled. You don't need to know the details. Adrian stood, moving around the desk. As for you, consider this your last chance. One more mistake, one more security breach in your operations, and we're done. Understood? Yes. And Marcus, my wife is not a topic of discussion. She's not a weakness to exploit or a distraction to question. She's my partner, and she has my complete trust. Anyone who doesn't respect that can find work elsewhere. Marcus stood, his expression carefully neutral. Understood. If that's all? One more thing. Adrian's hand settled on Elena's shoulder, a clear statement of unity. Elena will be attending more meetings going forward. She needs to understand the business, understand our operations. Treat her with the same respect you'd show me, because disrespecting her is disrespecting me, and we both know how I handle disrespect. After Marcus left, Elena released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. That was necessary, Adrian finished. He needed to see that you're not just my wife in name. That you're part of this, committed to it. I played a role. Did you? Adrian turned her to face him, his hands on her waist. Because from where I stood, you meant every word. The woman who defended me, who told Marcus I was worth protecting, that wasn't an act. Elena wanted to deny it, to maintain the fiction that she was still the captive playing along, but the truth sat heavy in her chest. No, it wasn't. When did it change? He asked softly. When did this become real for you? I don't know. Maybe Italy. When I realized you might actually die and the thought terrified me. Maybe before that, watching you with the children at the community center. Maybe... She stopped, overwhelmed. Maybe from the beginning, Adrian suggested. Maybe we've both been lying to ourselves about what this is. He kissed her then, and Elena kissed back, admitting with her body what her mind still struggled to accept. This marriage, this connection, it had become real somewhere along the way. Real and terrifying and impossible to deny. Over the following weeks, Elena integrated into Adrian's world with shocking ease. She attended meetings, learning the coded language of his business. She met with the families under his protection, understanding the web of loyalty and obligation that held his empire together. She even accompanied him to a sit-down with rival family heads, sitting silent but present, a visible reminder that Adrian Viscari had someone worth protecting. But the peace was fragile. Elena felt it in the tension of Adrian's shoulders when he thought she wasn't looking, in the increased security, in Vincent's worried glances. Something was coming, they just didn't know what form it would take. The answer came on a Tuesday afternoon while Elena was working in the art studio Adrian had built for her. A converted sunroom filled with canvases and supplies, a piece of her old life resurrected in this new one. She was painting, lost in color and form, when Mrs. Chen's urgent voice shattered her focus. Mrs. Viscari, you need to come now. It's Mr. Viscari. Elena's heart stopped. She dropped her brush and ran, following Mrs. Chen to Adrian's office where he stood with Vincent, both men's faces grim. A laptop sat open on the desk, showing what looked like security footage. What happened? Elena demanded. We have a problem, Adrian said. A big one. The footage showed Marcus meeting with a man Elena didn't recognize, but the timestamp was from yesterday, and based on Vincent's expression, this meeting hadn't been authorized. Who is he meeting with? Elena asked. Dmitry Volkov, Vincent said. He's Kozlov's nephew, and he's been consolidating power since we took out their leadership. We thought they were finished, but it looks like they're regrouping under new management. And Marcus is meeting with him, Elena said, understanding dawning. He's betraying you. It appears so. Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless, but Elena saw the fury banked in his eyes. Vincent, gather everyone. Meeting in 1 hour. I want all senior people present. Including Marcus? Especially Marcus. After Vincent left, Elena moved to Adrian's side, her hand finding his. What are you going to do? What I have to. Marcus has been with me for 15 years, but betrayal is betrayal. He turned to face her. This is the part of my life you haven't seen yet, Elena. The part where I make hard choices and people die because of them. Are you sure you want to be here for this? I'm sure. And Elena was, with a certainty that should have frightened her but instead felt right. You said I was your partner. Partners don't run when things get difficult. Adrian pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. The meeting was held in the estate's formal dining room, transformed into a war room. Adrian's top people filled the chairs, Vincent at his right, Elena at his left, and 8 others, including Marcus. The tension was suffocating. Adrian stood at the head of the table, every inch the leader his father had trained him to be. We have a traitor among us, he began without preamble. Someone who's been meeting with our enemies, planning to undermine everything we've built. The room erupted in denials and accusations. Marcus sat still, his face carefully blank, but Elena saw his hands clench under the table. Vincent, show them, Adrian said. The security footage played on a large screen. Marcus meeting with Dmitry Volkov. Money changing hands. Papers being signed. The final shot showed them shaking hands, sealing whatever deal they'd made. Marcus, Adrian said quietly, anything to say? For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then he laughed, bitter and sharp. What's there to say? You've already made up your mind. I'm giving you a chance to explain. Explain what? That I've watched you for 15 years, waiting for my moment to lead? That you were supposed to be temporary, a bridge between your father and the next generation? But you stayed, and you consolidated power, and suddenly there was no room for anyone else at the top. Marcus's composure cracked. And then you married her, this civilian who knows nothing about our world, and you made her your partner instead of me. After everything I've done for you, everything I've sacrificed. So you sold me out to the Kozlovs. Adrian's voice was dangerously calm. I made a deal to survive what's coming. You're weak now, Adrian. Everyone sees it. You've let sentiment make you vulnerable, and the Volkov family is going to exploit that weakness until there's nothing left of the Viscari name. Elena stood slowly, drawing every eye in the room. You think he's weak because he loves me, because he chose to protect me instead of sacrificing me for strategy. Yes, Marcus spat. In our world, that kind of weakness gets you killed. Then watch carefully, Elena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Watch what this weakness can do. She moved to stand beside Adrian, meeting the eyes of everyone at the table. Adrian didn't become vulnerable when he married me. He became unstoppable. Because now he's not just fighting for power or pride, he's fighting for something that matters more than any of that. And a man with nothing left to lose except the person he loves is the most dangerous kind of enemy. She turned to Marcus. You made a deal with the Volkovs thinking Adrian was weak, but you're the one who's weak, Marcus. You're so desperate for power that you betrayed 15 years of loyalty for a promise from people we've already beaten once. That's not strength. That's pathetic. The room was silent. Adrian's hand found hers, squeezed once. Vincent, Adrian said, take Marcus to the basement. We'll handle this the old way. Adrian, wait! Marcus started, but two men were already moving, hauling him up. You had 15 years of chances, Marcus. You chose to waste them. Adrian's voice was final, absolute. Get him out of my sight. As Marcus was dragged away, still protesting, Adrian addressed the remaining people. Let this be a lesson. Loyalty is everything in this family. Betray that, betray me, and there's no forgiveness. But stay true, stand with me, and I'll protect you with everything I have. That's the deal. Anyone who doesn't like it can leave now. No one moved. Good. Vincent, double our security on all operations. I want anyone connected to Marcus vetted again. If there are more traitors, I want them found. Adrian's hand tightened on Elena's. And anyone who even looks at my wife wrong answers to me personally. Understood? A chorus of agreement filled the room. The meeting dispersed, leaving Elena and Adrian alone. I need to handle Marcus, Adrian said quietly. You don't have to. I know, and I'm not going to watch. But Adrian, Elena turned to face him. Don't lose yourself in this. Do what needs to be done, but remember who you are. Who we are. He kissed her forehead. You're my conscience now. My reminder that there's more to life than violence and power. Then come back to me when it's done. Don't stay down there longer than necessary. I won't. Elena retreated to their room, not the blue guest room anymore, but the master suite they'd been sharing for 2 weeks now. She tried to paint, to read, to distract herself from the knowledge of what was happening in the basement, but her mind wouldn't settle. Hours later, Adrian returned. He'd showered, changed clothes, removed any evidence of what he'd done. But Elena saw it in his eyes, the weight of another hard choice made. She went to him wordlessly, pulling him into her arms. He held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to humanity. Is it done? She asked. It's done. The Volkovs will find what's left of him tomorrow, and they'll understand what happens to people who betray me. His voice was hollow. This is what I am, Elena. This is the man you chose. I know exactly who you are. Elena pulled back to look at him. You're a man who protects what's his, who makes impossible choices so other people don't have to, who builds community centers with blood money and somehow makes it work. You're complicated and dangerous and sometimes terrifying, but you're also mine, and I'm not going anywhere. Adrian's control finally broke. He kissed her with desperate intensity, and Elena kissed back, choosing him fully for the first time. This wasn't duty or survival. This was acceptance, love even, though the words still frightened her. They made love that night, and it felt like a vow more binding than the words they'd spoken at their wedding. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets with Adrian's arm around her, Elena realized she'd stopped being a prisoner weeks ago. She'd become Elena Viscari in truth. And terrifying as it was, she wouldn't change it. 3 years had changed everything. Elena stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of their penthouse office, one hand resting on the swell of her belly, watching the city sprawl beneath her. The woman who'd cowered in a classroom seemed like a stranger now, someone from a different life. That terrified art teacher had been replaced by Elena Vescari, a name that carried weight in rooms where power was negotiated and lives hung in the balance. "You're thinking too hard again," Adrian said from behind his desk, not looking up from the contracts he was reviewing. Even after 3 years, he could read her moods with uncanny accuracy. "I'm thinking about how different everything is." "Regrets?" "No." And she meant it. The path that had brought her here had been forced, violent, terrifying. But it had also led to this, a partnership that had transformed both of them, a love forged in fire and blood that nothing could break. "Just remembering where we started." Adrian set down his pen and crossed to her, his arms encircling her from behind, hands settling over hers on her stomach. "Where we started was me making the worst decision of my life for the right reasons. Where we are now is the best thing that's ever happened to me." Elena leaned back against him, savoring the solid warmth of his body. Their baby kicked, and Adrian's sharp intake of breath made her smile. 3 months until they'd meet their daughter, and he still reacted with wonder every time he felt her move. "She's active today," Elena said. "Like her mother, stubborn and fierce." Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. "The community center expansion is almost complete. I thought we could do the ribbon cutting next month, before you're too uncomfortable to travel." The community center project had been Elena's idea, born from that first visit Adrian had taken her to years ago. What had started as one struggling facility in a forgotten neighborhood had grown into a network of 5 centers across the city, each offering job training, legal aid, addiction support, and protection for those who had nowhere else to turn. The Viscari Foundation, as it was officially known, ran them all, funded by Adrian's legitimate business ventures and his less legitimate ones. "I want to be there," Elena said. "Maria's been calling me every week with updates. She's so proud of what we've built." "What you've built?" "I just write the checks." "You do more than that." Elena turned in his arms to face him. "You gave people hope, safety, a chance at something better. That matters, Adrian." His expression softened in the way it only did for her. "I gave them what you showed me was possible. Before you, I saw the world in terms of power and strategy. You taught me to see people, to understand that real strength comes from building things, not just destroying them." The intercom buzzed, Vincent's voice cutting through the moment. "Adrian, we have a situation. I need you both in the conference room. Now." The tension in Vincent's voice sent ice through Elena's veins. In 3 years, she'd learned to read the subtle gradations of danger in her new world. This was serious. Adrian's hand found the small of her back, a gesture that had become automatic, protective, possessive, grounding. They moved together through the hallway of their legitimate business headquarters, past employees who greeted them with genuine warmth. The Vescari Corporation ran import-export operations, real estate development, restaurants, and a dozen other ventures, all legal, all profitable, all carefully maintained to give Adrian the appearance of a reformed businessman leaving his family's criminal past behind. The appearance was, of course, a lie. Adrian still controlled the underground operations his father had built, but he'd restructured everything after Marcus's betrayal. Smaller, tighter, more selective about what business they accepted. No drugs, no human trafficking, nothing that preyed on the innocent. What remained was protection, mediation between parties who couldn't use official channels, and strategic acquisitions that skirted legal boundaries without crossing them entirely. It was still criminal, but it was, as Adrian put it, criminal with a conscience. Vincent waited in the conference room with 3 others, Adrian's most trusted associates. The flat screen on the wall showed surveillance footage, and Elena's blood ran cold when she recognized the location. "That's the Fletcher Avenue Center," she said. "What happened?" 2 hours ago, someone firebombed the building," Vincent said grimly. "No one was inside, thank God, but the damage is extensive. Fire department has it contained, but..." He clicked to another image, this one showing graffiti spray-painted on the wall. 3 words in Russian, "This is warning." Adrian's entire body went rigid beside her. "Volkov." "We thought he was finished," Vincent said. "After Marcus, after we destroyed their operations. We underestimated him. Adrian's voice was ice. He's been rebuilding, waiting for the right moment, and now he's threatening what's mine. Elena stared at the graffiti, rage building in her chest. That center served 200 people a week. Single mothers, kids trying to escape gang life, elderly folks who had nowhere else to get medical care. Dmitry Volkov had attacked them to get to Adrian, and that was unforgivable. "Do we know where he is?" she asked. The room went quiet. Adrian turned to her, something like concern flickering in his eyes. "Elena, don't." She met his gaze steadily. "Don't tell me this isn't my fight. He attacked our center, our people. That makes it my fight too." "She's right," Vincent said quietly. "This was a direct attack on the Foundation, which means it was an attack on both of you. He's not just coming after Adrian anymore. He's coming after the family." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Then we end this, permanently. Vincent, I want everything we have on Volkov, every location, every associate, every move he's made in the last year. If he wants war, we'll give him one he won't survive." Over the next week, Elena watched Adrian transform into the ruthless strategist he'd been before she softened his edges. But this time was different. This time she stood beside him, equally committed to destroying the threat. She attended the strategy meetings, offered insights, used her understanding of people to help anticipate Volkov's moves. "He's not just after revenge," she said during one session, studying photographs of Volkov spread across the table. "If he was, he would have hit us directly. The community center was a message, yes, but it was also testing our response. He wants to see if you've gone soft." "He's about to learn I haven't," Adrian said darkly. "No, but that's exactly what he expects. Immediate retaliation, a show of force. We need to be smarter." Elena tapped the photograph. "He's consolidating the Kozlov remnants, trying to rebuild their empire. But he's young, untested. His people don't fully trust him yet. What if we exploit that?" Vincent leaned forward, interested. "How?" "We make him look weak. Not by attacking him directly, but by turning his own people against him." Elena's mind worked through the strategy, seeing connections and possibilities the way she once saw light and shadow in a painting. "We offer his lieutenants better deals, more money, actual security. We show them that working with us is safer and more profitable than following Volkov into a war he can't win." Adrian stared at her, something like pride and desire mixing in his expression. "You want to dismantle his organization from the inside. I want to leave him with nothing. No soldiers, no support, no power. Just like he tried to do to us." Elena's voice hardened. "And then, when he's alone and desperate, we finish it." The plan took 2 weeks to execute. Vincent made contact with 3 of Volkov's key people, offering deals too good to refuse: legitimate positions in Viscari operations, protection for their families, and most importantly, a way out of a war they knew they couldn't win. 2 accepted immediately. The third needed more convincing, which Adrian provided through a demonstration of exactly what happened to people who stayed loyal to losing causes. Elena didn't ask for details. She'd learned when to look away, but Volkov was smarter than they'd given him credit for. When his organization started crumbling, he didn't retreat. He escalated. The attack came on a Tuesday morning. Elena was at the main community center, meeting with Maria about reconstruction plans for the Fletcher Avenue location when the shooting started. The first bullet shattered the front windows, sending glass raining down on the reception area. People screamed, diving for cover. Elena's security detail, 2 guards Adrian insisted accompany her everywhere, returned fire immediately, dragging her toward the back exit. But more gunmen poured in from the rear entrance, cutting off their escape. They were trapped. "Get her out of here!" one guard shouted, firing at the advancing attackers. He went down with a bullet to the chest, blood spreading across his shirt. Elena's world slowed. She saw Maria huddled under a desk, terrified. Saw children crying in a corner, their art class turned into a war zone. Saw the second guard trying to hold off 6 men with his remaining ammunition. Saw her phone on the floor where she'd dropped it, Adrian's number on speed dial. She couldn't call him. By the time he arrived, everyone in this building could be dead, including her and their unborn daughter. This wasn't Italy, where she'd had the luxury of distance and Adrian's protection. This was her fight, her people, her responsibility. Elena had sworn she'd never be a victim again. Time to prove it. She grabbed the fallen guard's weapon, checking the magazine the way Adrian had taught her. Half full. Enough if she was smart, The second guard was reloading when she appeared at his side. Mrs. Vescari, you need to hide. I need to protect these people. Elena's voice was steady. The fear transformed into cold determination. How many attackers? 8, maybe 10. They're trying to take you alive. Then they're about to be disappointed. Elena raised the gun, sighting on a man advancing through the front entrance. She fired twice, center mass like Adrian had drilled into her. The attacker went down. The guard stared at her for a split second, then nodded grimly. Stay behind cover. Conserve ammunition. I'll call for backup. They held the position for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. Elena fired with precision, covering angles while the guard coordinated with Vincent over his radio. Her pregnant belly made movement awkward, but adrenaline and fury compensated. These men had come into her center, threatened her people, endangered children. They would pay for that. She dropped 3 more attackers before the cavalry arrived. Adrian's full security force, heavily armed and absolutely ruthless. The remaining gunmen didn't stand a chance. Within minutes, the shooting stopped, replaced by the wail of sirens. Adrian burst through the door like an avenging angel, his face white with terror that transformed into rage when he saw Elena standing there, gun in hand, very much alive. Are you insane? He shouted, crossing to her in 3 strides. You could have been killed. You're pregnant, Elena. You should have hidden. I was protecting our people, Elena interrupted, her voice sharp. What was I supposed to do? Let them die? Yes, no, I don't. Adrian pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. I thought I'd lost you. When Vincent called, when he said the center was under attack, I'm fine, the baby's fine. Elena pulled back to look at him. But Adrian, this has to end. Volkov won't stop until one of us is dead. It's time to finish this. His eyes hardened to black ice. Agreed. Vincent. Vincent appeared, covered in blood that hopefully wasn't his own. We captured 2 alive. They're already talking. Volkov's holed up in a warehouse on the docks, waiting to hear if they got you. Then let's not disappoint him. Adrian turned to Elena. You're going home. Full security detail. I don't want you anywhere near this. Adrian? No arguments. Not this time. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. You've proven your courage 1,000 times over. Let me protect you now. Let me do what needs to be done without worrying you're in danger. Elena wanted to argue, but the fear in his eyes stopped her. She'd put him through enough today. Okay, but you come back to me. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. You end this and come home. I promise. He kissed her like it might be the last time, deep and desperate, and full of 3 years of love and partnership. Then he was gone, taking half their forces with him, leaving Elena in the destroyed community center surrounded by frightened people she'd protected. Maria emerged from under the desk, shaking but unhurt. Mrs. Vescari, you saved us. If you hadn't fought back. We saved each other. Elena holstered her weapon, then knelt beside a crying child. It's okay now. The bad men are gone. You're safe. But even as she comforted the children and coordinated with police and paramedics, Elena's mind was with Adrian. He was walking into a trap. Volkov would never be at that warehouse unless he wanted to be found. This was endgame, and only one of them would walk away. Please, she thought, let it be Adrian. The call came 3 hours later. Vincent's voice, exhausted but satisfied. It's done. Volkov's dead. Adrian's fine. We're coming home. Elena's knees went weak with relief. What happened? I'll let him tell you, but Elena, it's over. Really over this time. The Volkov threat is finished. That night, Adrian came home covered in blood and exhaustion. Elena met him at the door, and they clung to each other without words. Later, after he'd showered and changed, he told her everything. It was a trap, he confirmed. Volkov had 20 men at that warehouse, all armed, all waiting. He thought he had the advantage, but changed his mind. You did. Adrian's smile was grim. When word got out that you'd fought off his attack on the center, killed 3 of his men while pregnant, Elena, it broke something in him. He'd underestimated you, underestimated us. That moment of doubt was all we needed. So you killed him. I gave him a choice. Walk away, leave the city, never come back, or die where he stood. Adrian's eyes were distant, remembering. He chose death, said he'd rather die than be beaten by a woman and a man too weak to protect her. Those were his last words before I put a bullet in his brain. Elena should have been horrified. The woman she'd been 3 years ago would have been, but that woman was gone, replaced by someone who understood that mercy had limits, that some threats could only be answered with absolute force. Good, she said simply. Now we can focus on what matters. Building our family, expanding the foundation, living without always looking over our shoulders. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. We survived, Adrian. Everything else is just details. The months that followed were the most peaceful of their marriage. With the Volkov threat eliminated and Adrian's reputation for ruthless protection cemented, rivals kept their distance. The Viscari Empire ran smoothly, legitimate businesses thriving while underground operations hummed along with careful discretion. Elena threw herself into the foundation, overseeing the reconstruction of the Fletcher Avenue Center and the opening of 2 more locations. She created art programs for the children, knowing firsthand how creativity could save lives. Her pregnancy advanced, and Adrian became almost comically overprotective, hovering whenever she moved and insisting on carrying her upstairs despite her protests. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass," she complained after he insisted on carrying her groceries despite being surrounded by staff who could do it. "You're carrying my daughter. That makes you precious cargo." "Your daughter is going to have you wrapped around her tiny finger." "Absolutely," Adrian agreed without shame, just like her mother does. Their daughter arrived 3 weeks early on a warm spring morning. Labor was intense and painful, and nothing like the peaceful birth Elena had envisioned. But when the doctor placed their baby in her arms, tiny and perfect and screaming with impressive volume, everything else faded away. "She's beautiful," Adrian whispered, his finger traced by a miniature hand. "She looks like you. She has your eyes, and probably your stubborn streak." They named her Isabella Rose Viscari, after Adrian's mother and Elena's grandmother. Bella for short, which suited her perfectly. She was demanding and fierce and absolutely loved, becoming the center of their world in an instant. Vincent visited the hospital, bringing flowers and an enormous stuffed bear. He held Bella with practiced ease, his expression softening in ways Elena had never seen. "She's going to rule the world someday," he predicted. "With you two as parents, how could she not?" "I just want her to be happy," Elena said. "Safe and happy and free to choose her own path." "She will be. You and Adrian have made sure of that." Vincent's expression turned serious. "You've changed him, you know. When his father died, Adrian became hard, focused only on power and survival. But you reminded him there's more to life. Family, purpose, building something that matters. He's a better man because of you. He made me stronger too, showed me I was capable of more than I ever imagined." Elena looked at Adrian, who'd fallen asleep in the chair beside her bed, exhausted from 36 hours of labor support. "We saved each other, really." The years that followed were full of joy and challenge in equal measure. Bella grew into a precocious toddler who had indeed wrapped her father around her finger. The foundation expanded to 8 centers, then 10, helping thousands of people rebuild their lives. Adrian gradually shifted more operations into legitimate channels, leaving the criminal enterprises to trusted lieutenants while he focused on being a husband and father. But the past had a way of catching up. Bella was 4 when the new threat emerged. Elena was reading to her daughter in the nursery when Adrian appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "We need to talk." Elena's heart sank. She knew that look. "Bella, sweetie, why don't you play with your blocks while Mommy talks to Daddy?" "Okay, Mommy." Bella, oblivious to the tension, cheerfully began building a tower. In their bedroom, Adrian closed the door and pulled out his phone, showing Elena a photograph. "This was delivered to my office today. No note, just the picture." Elena's blood ran cold. The photograph showed Bella at her preschool, playing in the playground. Someone had been watching their daughter. "Who?" she asked, her voice deadly calm. "We're not sure yet. But Elena..." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Whoever they are, they're not afraid of us. They're not trying to negotiate or threaten. They're just letting us know they can reach Bella anytime they want." The terror that flooded through Elena transformed almost instantly into rage. She'd fought off attackers, killed to protect her people, built a life from the ashes of kidnapping and forced marriage. She had become someone who didn't bow to threats, and now someone was targeting her child. "Find them," she said. "I don't care what it costs or how long it takes. Find them and end this." "I already have Vincent on it. But Elena, Until we know what we're dealing with, we need to increase security. Bella doesn't leave the house without armed guards. You don't go anywhere without... I know the drill. We've done this before. Elena moved to the window, looking out at the grounds where more security was already being positioned. But Adrian, this is different. Before, they came after us. Now they're threatening our daughter. That's crossing a line. I know. He joined her at the window, his arm around her waist. Which is why I'm not going to hold back. Whoever did this is going to learn what happens when you threaten a Viscari child. The investigation took 2 days. Vincent worked every contact, called in every favor, until he had a name, Alexander Kozlov, Dmitri's uncle, who'd been in prison when they destroyed his family's organization. He'd been released 6 months ago and had been quietly rebuilding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He wants revenge for his nephew, Vincent explained, but he's smarter than Dmitri was. He knows he can't beat us in open war, so he's targeting the one thing we care about more than anything. Bella, Elena said, her hands clenched into fists. He thinks we'll negotiate to protect her. Will we? Vincent asked carefully. Adrian and Elena exchanged a look, years of partnership and understanding flowing between them. Then Elena turned to Vincent. No, we don't negotiate with people who threaten children. We eliminate them. Elena? Vincent looked shocked. In all the years he'd known her, she'd always been the voice of mercy, of proportional response. I became Elena Viscari the night I shot at those cars in Italy, she said quietly. I became a mother the day Bella was born. Someone who threatens my child doesn't get mercy. They get war. Adrian's expression was fierce pride. Then let's give him one. The plan was elegant in its brutality. They would draw Alexander out by appearing to accept his implicit terms, showing fear, pulling back security, making themselves look vulnerable. Meanwhile, Elena would track his movements through contacts at the community centers, using her network of people who owed the Foundation everything to gather intelligence. It worked. 3 days later, they had Alexander's location, a rented house in the suburbs, surprisingly close to their own estate. He'd been arrogant enough to set up operations practically in their backyard. I want to be there, Elena said when Adrian revealed the plan to take Alexander that night. Absolutely not. You're staying here with Bella, protected by... I'm going. Elena's voice left no room for argument. He threatened our daughter, Adrian. I need to be the one who shows him what that costs. They stared at each other, wills clashing. Finally, Adrian nodded. Together then, like everything else. They left Bella with Vincent and Mrs. Chen, the estate locked down with enough security to repel an army. Adrian's forces surrounded Alexander's location, cutting off all escape routes. When they breached the door, Alexander was waiting in his living room, remarkably calm for a man facing his death. The famous Viscaris, he said in heavily accented English. Both of you, I'm honored. You threatened our child, Elena said coldly. There's no honor in that, just stupidity. Ah, the art teacher turned mob wife. I've heard so much about you. Alexander's smile was cruel. Tell me, does your daughter know what her parents really are? Killers, criminals, monsters. Our daughter knows we love her and would do anything to protect her, Adrian said, which is more than you can say. Your nephew died because he was reckless and stupid. You're about to die for the same reason. Perhaps. But I've made arrangements. If I don't check in every 12 hours, my associates release everything I know about your operations to the FBI. Your legitimate businesses, your community centers, all of it will be investigated, shut down. You'll lose everything. Elena laughed, sharp and bitter. You think we didn't expect that? Adrian, show him. Adrian pulled out his phone, displaying a video. It showed Alexander's associates being arrested by federal agents. We've been working with the FBI for 6 months, he said, turning evidence on rival families, helping them dismantle operations that actually hurt people. In exchange, they've agreed to give us immunity for our past activities and protection going forward. The color drained from Alexander's face. You're lying. We're not. You see, Alexander, we learned something from every attack, every threat, every war we survived. Power isn't about who has the most guns or the most fear. It's about who has the most options. Elena moved closer, her voice dropping. You had one play, threaten our child and hope we'd crumble. We had dozens, and every single one of them ends with you dead and us stronger than before. You can't kill me. I'm unarmed. This is murder. No, Adrian said quietly, raising his gun. This is justice. For every child you've terrified, every family you've threatened, every life you've ruined trying to rebuild your uncle's empire. This is the price. The gunshot was loud in the small room. Alexander slumped in his chair, dead before he hit the floor. Adrian lowered his weapon, his expression empty of everything except cold satisfaction. Elena felt nothing but relief. The last Kozlov was gone. Their daughter was safe. This chapter was finally, truly closed. They left before the police arrived. Arrangements had been made for the scene to be cleaned, for evidence to disappear. By the time they returned to the estate, it was as if they'd never left. Bella was asleep, curled up with her stuffed bear in Vincent's lap. The older man looked up as they entered, reading the success in their faces. "It's done?" he asked quietly. "It's done," Adrian confirmed. "The Kozlov family is finished. All of them." Elena scooped up her sleeping daughter, holding her close and breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. Bella stirred, her small arms wrapping around Elena's neck. "Mommy," she murmured, "you came back. Always, baby, always." The following year brought changes Elena never expected. With the criminal threats eliminated and their alliance with law enforcement formalized, Adrian began the slow process of legitimizing their entire operation. The underground businesses were sold or shut down. The protection rackets transformed into actual security companies. The gray area operations became fully legal consulting firms. It took time, money, and careful negotiation. But Adrian was patient, and Elena was persuasive. Together, they navigated the transformation from crime family to legitimate dynasty. The Viscari Foundation became their primary focus. What had started as 5 community centers grew to 15, then 20. They expanded beyond the city, creating a network of support that touched thousands of lives. Elena ran the foundation full-time, using her understanding of art and creativity to develop programs that gave people hope and purpose. Adrian joined her, shocking everyone by leaving the day-to-day operations of his business empire to trusted executives so he could focus on philanthropy. The man who'd once ruled through fear and violence now built parks, funded schools, and created opportunities for people society had forgotten. "You've gone soft," Vincent teased him one afternoon, watching Adrian teach a group of kids how to paint. "I've gone happy," Adrian corrected, glancing at Elena across the room. "There's a difference." Bella grew into a bright, confident child who showed no signs of the violence that had surrounded her early years. She knew her father was powerful and her mother was strong, but to her, they were just mom and dad, loving, supportive, always there. On the anniversary of their 7th wedding year, the same date as their forced ceremony, Adrian surprised Elena with a vow renewal ceremony. This time, it wasn't coercion or strategy. It was pure choice. They stood in the garden where they'd first married, surrounded by real friends and family. Elena's parents were there, having finally been told the truth about their daughter's disappearance and subsequent life. They'd struggled to accept it at first, but seeing Elena's happiness, seeing the love between her and Adrian, they'd made their peace. "I didn't choose you the first time," Adrian said during his vows. "I took you out of necessity and told myself it was protection. But every day since, I've chosen you again. I choose your strength, your compassion, your ability to see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. I choose the family we've built, the life we've created, and the future we're going to share. Elena Viscari, I love you more than power, more than empire, more than my own life, and I will spend every remaining day proving that." Elena's vows were shorter, but no less powerful. "You stole my life, and then you gave me a better one. You showed me I was stronger than I knew, capable of more than I imagined. You've been my partner in every sense, in danger, in building our empire, in raising our daughter, in creating something good from terrible beginnings. I love you, Adrian Viscari, not because I have to, but because I choose to. Every day, I choose you." They kissed while Bella cheered and Vincent wiped his eyes, and the sun set over the estate that had been Elena's prison before becoming her home. 2 years later, their son was born, Marco Vincent Viscari, named for Adrian's father and his godfather. If Bella had been Adrian's little princess, Marco was destined to be Elena's devoted protector from birth. He inherited his father's intensity and his mother's artistic soul, a combination that promised interesting teenage years. The Viscari children grew up loved and protected, unaware of the violence that had shaped their parents' early relationship. They knew their parents were important, that they ran businesses and foundations that helped people, but mostly, they knew they were wanted, cherished, safe. On Bella's 10th birthday, she asked the question Elena had been dreading. "Mommy, how did you and Daddy meet?" Elena and Adrian exchanged a look across the birthday cake. They'd agreed years ago to always be honest with their children, within reason. But how did you explain kidnapping and forced marriage to a 10-year-old? "We met during a difficult time," Elena said carefully. "Daddy needed help, and I needed protection. We made an arrangement that seemed crazy at first, but it ended up being the best decision either of us ever made." "Like a business deal?" Bella asked, her sharp mind already working through the implications. "Sort of, but it became something more, something real. We chose to love each other, even when we didn't have to." "That's romantic," Bella declared. "Like a fairy tale, but with more business meetings." Adrian laughed, the sound rich and genuine. That's exactly what it was, a fairy tale with spreadsheets. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Elena and Adrian sat on their balcony overlooking the grounds. The estate had changed over the years. The walls were lower now, less fortress and more home. The security was still present but subtler, integrated into the landscape rather than dominating it. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd let me go that night?" Elena asked. "If you'd made a different choice?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "I'd probably be dead. One of my enemies would have found you, used you against me, and I would have torn the world apart trying to get you back, which would have gotten me killed. And I'd probably be dead too. The Kozlovs wouldn't have left a witness alive for long. So we saved each other, really, in the most dysfunctional way possible." Elena laughed. "We should write a book. How to Build a Marriage, a guide to kidnapping, violence, and eventually finding love." "I don't think that would sell well." "No, probably not." Elena leaned against him, comfortable and content. "But it worked for us." "It did. Against all logic and reason, it worked perfectly." Adrian's arm tightened around her. "I love you, Elena Viscari. I loved you the moment you hit me with that ruler, I think. Too stubborn to give up, too brave to stay hidden. You challenged me to be better, to want more than just power and control. And you showed me I was stronger than I believed, that I could survive anything, adapt to anything, become anyone I needed to be." Elena tilted her face up to kiss him. "We're quite a team. The best team." 25 years after that stormy night in a school parking lot, Elena stood in a gallery showcasing her artwork. She'd returned to painting years ago, channeling her experiences into abstract pieces that explored themes of transformation, power, and redemption. Critics called her work visceral and unflinchingly honest. They had no idea how honest it really was. Adrian moved through the crowd beside her, still imposing at 58, but softened by the years and love. Their children were grown now, Bella running a division of the foundation while finishing her law degree, Marco studying architecture with plans to design affordable housing for underserved communities. The Viscari Empire had evolved into something neither Elena nor Adrian could have imagined that first night. They were legitimate now, respected, powerful in ways that had nothing to do with violence. The foundation helped tens of thousands of people annually. Adrian's businesses employed thousands more. Their children were good people, making positive differences in the world. But they never forgot where they'd started. The darkness that had brought them together. The violence that had tested them. The hard choices that had shaped who they became. "Any regrets?" Adrian asked, echoing Elena's question from years ago. Elena looked at him. Her husband, her partner, the man who'd stolen her life and given her a better one. She thought about the art teacher who died in that parking lot, the woman she'd become, the family they'd built from ashes and impossibility. "Not a single one," she said. And she meant it. Every word, every day, every choice that had led them here. This was their story, messy, violent, beautiful, real, a love forged in fire that nothing could break. Elena Viscari had been born from kidnapping and coercion, but she'd become something far more powerful, a woman who'd transformed her captor into a partner, who'd built an empire on compassion instead of just fear, who'd proven that even the darkest beginnings could lead to the brightest futures. She was no longer the frightened teacher hiding under a desk. She was Elena Viscari, and she was exactly where she belonged.